raise the lights down. A little more, just enough for the corners of your room to soften. Your breath falls into a slower rhythm. And then, quite naturally, almost politely, the space around you loosens. You blink once, and when your eyes open again, you are no longer here. You awaken inside a Roman insula of the 1st century. A tall, slightly leaning creature of brick and timber, full of neighbors you've never met and sounds you didn't ask for. There's a good and a bad piece of news, as always. The good news: the night passed quietly, and no amphora rolled onto your head from the upper floor. The bad news: you've woken up to the murmur of the public baths next door, and the traders have begun shouting their morning greetings far earlier than any sane person should. And you might have slept on a cot that remembers every sleeper who came before you. You sit there for a moment, half wrapped in a coarse wool blanket, letting the place come into focus. The air is warm already, not hot, just pre-warmed by the great belly of the city. There's a faint dampness drifting from the direction of the baths, a wet mineral scent, like warm stone with a shy hint of sulfur. A breeze wanders in through the wooden shutters, carrying the smell of last night's embers from someone's brazier, and the faint sweetness of figs someone down the alley has cut open. The soundscape is a patchwork. Distant splashes, a bucket knocking on wet pavement, the uneven clatter of sandals heading to the market. A soft crack in the planks above you reminds you that the family upstairs is already awake, tiptoeing in a way that is somehow louder than walking normally. You feel the rough planter's clay beneath your feet, cool from the night. Your stomach tastes a ghost of salt, perhaps from the olives you nibbled before bed. These are your first seconds, and somehow this is only the dawn. You rise slowly, stretching in the narrow room. The cot creaks, a familiar little complaint. Your space is modest. A wooden chest, a stool, a niche in the wall where your lamp has burned itself out. You touch the wall with your palm. It's cool, thicker at the base, showing the age of the building. The insula sighs around you, as if every board shares one long breath. You wash your face with the small ceramic bowl near the window. The water is slightly gritty. The clay pitcher never keeps it spotless, but you tell yourself it's refreshing. You smooth your hair with your fingers, tug at your tunic, and prepare for the slow drift into the waking day. Outside your shutters, the alley is beginning to stir. Someone calls out a price for bread, already negotiating with a customer who clearly hasn't had enough sleep to bargain. A donkey grumbles in the distance. The baths release another wave of warm, fragrant vapor. And this, you tell yourself, is simply the morning's greeting. You step toward the door, hearing the iron latch whisper beneath your hand. You inhale once more. Damp stone, olive oil from last night's lamp, faint smoke, and then you step into the corridor. A neighbor is already sweeping dust into a small pile, though the dust will surely return by midday. She nods at you with that morning resignation only shared by people who know their building shakes in a strong breeze. Yes, this is life in a Roman insula, and you haven't even reached breakfast. You descend the staircase carefully. The wooden steps lean slightly downward, as though trying to escape their own weight. You grip the rope railing out of habit, feeling its fibers scratch gently against your palm. Below you, the noise of the street thickens. Clinks of metal tools, laughter too energetic for this hour, the splash of someone rinsing a bucket. A merchant calls out the freshness of his dates. As you reach the lower landing, a thin boy rushes past, nearly colliding with you. He mutters something apologetic without slowing. You brush off the collision, thinking that this building is always too narrow for the number of people it houses. You pause at the base of the stairs. The threshold is cool, as if holding the last memory of night. You step into the alley, blinking at the soft morning glow. The climate here is kinder than you expected. Warm, yes, but not yet harsh. There's a gentle humidity from the bath's constant exhalations. The stones beneath your sandals carry a mild chill, an early reminder of the shade cast between tall insulae. The sky is only starting to brighten, a pale gold appearing between rooftop lines like a timid promise. You look toward the baths. Their walls are wrapped in faint mist, like a sleeping giant breathing steadily. You taste the mineral humidity on your lips. A faint breeze delivers a hint of rosemary from an unseen kitchen, its green sharpness cutting through the morning haze. Someone behind you clears his throat loudly. A merchant, setting out jars of preserved fish. He smells strongly of brine, but his voice is cheerful. He greets you as though you've been friends for decades. This is the charm of the city. Strangers commit to familiarity. And this, you think with slight amusement, is still not even mid-morning. You wander toward the water vendor. The man is old, his shoulders slightly curled inward. His buckets hang from a pole, reminding you of worn bronze bells. He grumbles about the distance from the fountain, but you notice he charges a few extra coins for the complaint. You offer a smile you hope is understanding. He pours you a measure of water into your small cup. It's cool and tastes of stone, with a faint metallic edge. You sip slowly, listening to the clinking of cups and the sloshing of his trade. The city's warmth grows gradually now, the stones giving off a faint shimmer. You wipe a little sweat from your brow and feel the grainy layer of dust the morning has already presented you. Rome never lets you stay clean for long. It insists on sharing its texture. You turn toward the market street. The stalls are beginning to assemble fully, though many merchants have been here since the darkest hours. A man slicing cheese with a thin bronze blade nods at you, offering a corner sample that tastes mildly sour but pleasantly creamy. Nearby, a woman sells olives from a large clay bowl. The scent is heavy brine, herbs, a hint of lemon. You pop one into your mouth, letting the salt bloom on your tongue. She chuckles, telling you to chew slowly. You obey, partly because it's morning, partly because she seems to know more about olives than you ever will. The sun nudges itself higher. Shadows sharpen. Your steps soften. You feel your stomach rumbling. Breakfast in the insula is humble bread, perhaps dipped in watered wine or olive oil. You purchase a small loaf, still warm from the communal oven. The crust crackles softly under your fingers. You break off a large piece, steam curling upward. It smells of wheat, fire, and something mildly sweet you can't name. You chew slowly, savoring each bite. The bread is dense, earthy, comforting. A few crumbs cling to your tunic. The warmth fills your hands as you hold the remaining piece. Across from you, a baker wipes sweat from his brow. He looks exhausted but satisfied. He gives you a small nod, as if approving your pace of eating. You feel oddly honored. A group of children runs past, clutching wooden toys fashioned from leftover scraps of carpentry. Their laughter skips over you like pebbles over water. You watch them a moment, appreciating the simplicity of their morning, energy unburdened by rent or market prices. Another merchant calls out fresh vegetables. Fine cabbages, crisp as the dawn, he insists. You're not sure which dawn he's referring to, but you appreciate his conviction. A dog noses at your sandal. You offer it a crumb, and it sniffs with theatrical suspicion before accepting. You glance upward. Laundry lines stretch between buildings like pale ribbons. Tunics sway gently, airing after the wash. You imagine the arms that scrub them in cold water, the fingers wringing them out. Domestic labor starts early here and ends late. The climate grows warmer still. You feel the faint stickiness of humidity settling on your skin, film-thin but noticeable. The sun has now climbed to a comfortable height, painting golden squares on the facades of the buildings. And this, you realize, is still only the early stretch of your day. You decide to wander back into the insula, curious about the midday rituals that await. The staircase groans beneath your feet, a familiar protest. Inside, a neighbor is grinding grain in a small stone handmill. The rhythmic scrape echoes softly, like a gentle argument between stones. She does not look up, but she hums a tune older than the city itself. It curls around the air, making the small corridor feel warmer. You pause to listen a moment. The melody is simple, almost hypnotic. The scent of crushed wheat mingles with the musty smell of old timber. It is oddly soothing. A family on the upper level pours water into a basin. Some spills onto the floorboards, dripping in thin threads that patter gently. The sound is irregular but comforting, like a lazy heartbeat. You press on, passing a storage room half lit by a tiny window. Its shelves hold clay jars, baskets of dried herbs, coils of rope. Dust motes drift in the beam of light, turning slowly, like dancers who've just woken from a nap. You touch the wall again. It's warmer now, storing the heat of the day. You trace a small crack with your fingertip, a line that has probably existed for decades, maybe longer. The building bears its age openly. You return to your small room for a moment of quiet. You sit on the stool, letting your shoulders sink. The distant murmur of traders still floats through the shutters, but muffled now, softened by the thickness of the walls. You breathe in deeply. You can smell the faint oil from your lamp, the dust from the corridor, the ghost of bread still on your hands. Another wave of warmth seeps in. Your eyelids grow heavy for a moment, as though inviting a nap, but you know the day has only begun. You rise again, steadying yourself with a slow exhale. The light from the window is bright now, highlighting the imperfections in the plaster. You decide to step outside once more, to see how the world has bloomed in the short time since breakfast. The alley is busier. Voices stack on top of one another like layers of woven cloth. Someone laughs loudly. Someone argues softly. The baths release another breath of steam. And as you stand there, feeling the warm air settle around you like a thin wool cloak, you remind yourself, it is still not even midday. You step further into the daylight, letting the warmth settle along your arms like an old, contented cat. The alley has grown louder, yes, but also more familiar, voices weaving into one another, forming a kind of communal hum. You drift with it, not hurried, not resisting. Your pace finds its own rhythm in the Roman morning. You turn a corner and feel a sudden shift of air, cooler, touched by the narrow shadow of the insula's tallest wall. A crate of vegetables sits nearby, its woven reeds frayed at the edges. The grocer has not yet returned from some errand, so the cabbage heads glisten quietly on their own, beads of dew still clinging stubbornly to their leaves. You touch one leaf lightly. It's crisp, damp, almost cold. Your fingertips smell faintly green afterward, like crushed herbs. The noise of the baths rumbles again, duller here, muffled by the tight cluster of buildings. A low, steady splash, then a whistle of steam escaping through some unseen vent. The baths are not merely next door. They're an omnipresent rumor, a breath on the edge of your senses. You taste the mineral tang in the air even here, just faint enough to suggest warmth gathering behind walls. A man carrying a stack of amphorae passes by with a careful waddle. The clay jars clink in a restrained, nervous rhythm. He nods to you, sweat already purling along his hairline. You catch a trace of olive oil from the jars, thick and fruity. He moves on before you can offer help. Not that you were in any hurry to carry amphorae up a hill. You let yourself drift back toward the bath's outer wall. The stones are warm now, truly warm. You touch them lightly, and the heat seeps into your palm like the city introducing itself all over again. Soft hisses from unseen pipes echo faintly. The bass of splashing water rolls over the stones. You imagine people already sinking into pools, steam curling around them, their bones loosening. Tempting thought, but the day is still young, and you feel a gentle pride in remaining upright. Not far from you, two barbers are setting up their stools beneath a faded awning. One sharpens his razor on a smooth stone with deliberate, steady strokes. The rasping sound is surprisingly soothing, slow, even predictable. The other barber arranges combs and bottles, each clinking softly as he aligns them in a ritual known only to barbers. Their conversation is low, like a quiet debate neither intends to win. You decide to stroll past them. One greets you with a little nod, as though you've visited for years. "A trim later?" he asks lightly. You wave him off with a gentle smile. Your hair can wait, your curiosity cannot. Farther along, you pass a bakery's side window. Warm air breathes out from it in gusts thick with the smell of wheat, ash, and a hint of honeyed pastries. You catch yourself pausing. Inside, shadows move. Someone shaping dough, someone sweeping flour with brisk, circular motions. The rhythm is constant, almost meditative. A baker slides something heavy into the mouth of the oven, and a bloom of heat washes over your face. For a moment, you feel as though the day has wrapped you in warm linen. And still, it isn't even midday. You continue onward. The alley widens slightly before narrowing again. A Roman trick of architecture, perhaps intentional, perhaps accidental. It squeezes you into intimacy with its walls. A dripping gutter above releases a drop onto your wrist. The water is surprisingly cool. You rub the spot absently, half amused at Rome's insistence on making contact. You take another turn, and now the street opens into a small courtyard shared by several insulae. Laundry lines cross the sky here like lazy constellations. Tunics, sheets, towels, all swaying in the steadily warming breeze. The scent is a soft mixture of soap, sun, and something vaguely citrus from a neighbor's washwater. A young girl shakes out a garment, sending a brief shower of droplets that sparkle in the light. Some catch your arm, cold but not unpleasant. She smiles shyly before vanishing back indoors. You sit for a moment on a low stone bench. The bench is warm where the sun touches it, cool where the shadows linger. Pleasant contrast. You let your hands rest on the stone, absorbing its temperature gradient. The courtyard hums with life, but in a gentler tone than the market street. Here, the sounds are domestic. A broom brushing mosaic tiles, a pot lid knocking, a baby fussing softly before settling again. You lean back, feeling your shoulders loosen. For a moment, it seems as though time slows, caught in the light between the laundry and the stone. Then a neighbor appears, an older man carrying a small wooden bucket of water. He sets it down with a grunt and a sigh that seems far too dramatic for the size of the bucket. He glances at you, shrugs as though apologizing to the universe, and wanders inside. You smile to yourself, warmed by the tiny theatrics of daily life. The breeze shifts, bringing with it a ribbon of scent from a nearby cookshop. Garlic sizzling in oil, herbs crushed between fingers, a hint of fish being cleaned. You inhale deeply, your stomach reminding you that bread alone cannot sustain you through a Roman morning. You decide to follow your nose. You find the cookshop tucked neatly beside a pottery stall. The cook, a plump woman with arms strong enough to lift cauldrons without complaint, stands over a pan. Oil pops softly beneath her spatula. She greets you as though you are expected. Perhaps everyone is expected here. She offers you a small portion of something, fried dough flavored with herbs and a touch of cheese. You taste it carefully. It is warm, savory, comforting in a way that makes your shoulders drop half an inch in relaxation. You thank her, and she waves you off with a "come back later if you need more strength." As though you are preparing to conquer Gaul instead of stroll an apartment block. The heat of the day now begins its slow ascent. The light thickens, golden and assertive. You feel it on your forearms, on the bridge of your nose. The air is still pleasant, but you sense the early hints of the midday blaze that will later press itself against every stone. For now, though, the warmth is gentle. You wander back toward your insula, tracing the curve of the alley by instinct. The building rises above you, several stories tall, its timber frames bowed inward with age. Laundry flutters from the upper floors. A pair of pigeons quarrel near the roofline before deciding their argument isn't worth the effort. They settle again, feathers puffed, the picture of resigned domesticity. You approach the entrance, touching the doorframe lightly as you pass through. The wood is rough, familiar beneath your fingertips. Inside, the cool interior feels like stepping into shade after a long walk. You pause, letting your eyes adjust. The corridor is narrow, lit only by slivers of sunlight escaping through cracks in shutters and doorways. A potter is repairing a cracked vessel on the ground floor. He turns the jar slowly, tapping it with a tool that makes a hollow, woody sound. The clay smells earthy, like cooled soil after rain. The potter barely glances up, but the steady rhythm of his work fills the corridor with a soft, percussive heartbeat. You climb the stairs, moving slowly. Each step complains, but you are used to this. The building sings its old, creaking song every day, reassuring its inhabitants that it is still standing, still holding them. You brush the rope railing and feel its coarse fibers, a comforting grit against your palm. Upstairs, someone is arguing gently. Two voices, not angry, just insistent. The topic seems to be a missing sandal. You smile. Any household could be transported 2,000 years forward and still argue about misplaced shoes. When you reach your floor, a draft surprises you. Cool, smelling faintly of clay and wet laundry. A neighbor must have opened a door. You stand in the corridor a moment, enjoying the unexpected relief the air brings. A bowl of figs rests on the floor outside someone's door, perhaps cooling, perhaps forgotten. One fig has split slightly, revealing ruby flesh that glistens like a quiet invitation. You resist the urge to touch it. You step into your room again. The light has shifted. Sunbeams now stretch across the wall in long, narrow rectangles. Dust motes drift lazily, as though half asleep themselves. The air inside is cool compared to outside, but warming steadily. You sit on the stool, resting your elbows on your knees. The distant noise of the city is still present, but softened, like hearing the world through a wool blanket. You close your eyes for a moment. Your breathing slows without asking permission. You feel the warmth of the day creeping under the window shutters. A faint aroma of the market floats in bread, olives, herbs. The wooden chest creaks softly as it cools. You open your eyes again and watch the dust move in the sunbeam, each mote turning gently, like tiny dancers spinning without urgency. It's peaceful here, despite the cramped walls, the thin boards, the constant noise of neighbors. Beneath it all, the insula hums with life, but life at a pace you can choose to drift with, not fight against. You lean back, letting the quiet settle. Then, with a small smile, you remind yourself, it is still not even midday. You rise from the stool with a slow exhale, as though disentangling yourself from the gentle grip of morning. The room feels a little narrower now, warmed by the sun's steady climb. You touch the wall again, warmer than before, almost comforting. Somewhere beyond it, someone laughs, the sound muffled and hollow through the thick plaster. You decide to step outside once more, letting curiosity tug you along. The corridor is brighter now, though the light only filters through in shy patches. You walk past a neighbor's doorway and catch the faint scent of watered wine drifting from within. Someone is already relaxing into their day, or escaping it. Hard to tell. The stairwell is cooler. A draft coils lazily around your ankles as you descend. The wooden steps creak at their usual intervals, 3rd, 5th, 7th. Like a familiar old tune. Your hand glides down the rope railing, the fibers warmer now, rougher. They press faint impressions into your skin. You imagine the countless palms before yours that have shaped this rope's wear, each one leaving a small story behind. On the ground floor, you pass the potter again. His jar now bears a smooth new band of clay, still damp and slightly darker than the rest. A faint earthy aroma rises from it, cool mud, river water, a touch of mineral dust. He casts you a brief, unreadable glance before returning to his work, tapping gently to test the jar's voice. You continue past him, stepping toward the brightness of the street. The alley greets you with a warmer embrace this time. The sun has climbed enough to cast direct light across the stones, making them glow like pale embers. You blink slowly, adjusting. The air holds the dry heat of the rising day, but the breaths of the baths add a soft humidity that rounds the edges. It feels almost like standing between two climates, one crisp, one warm and damp. Outside, the world has grown busier. Traders call out with more urgency now. Customers haggle with stubborn determination. The rhythm of daily life has accelerated by half a step, but you move at your own pace, unhurried, observing. A young man carries a basket of laundry on his hip. Clean linens sway, releasing the scent of sun-warmed soap. You catch the fragrance as he passes. Faint lavender, a little citrus, and the unmistakable clean smell of cloth dried in open air. It lingers behind him like a polite farewell. The cookshop from earlier has grown noisier. Pots clatter, oil snaps and sputters. Voices rise in steady conversation. You approach it again, drawn by the promise of scents. Today's dishes simmer in wide bronze pans. Lentils stewing with herbs, fish sizzling in oil, onions softening into sweetness. The cook wipes her forehead with the back of her hand and gives you a knowing look. "Strength holding up?" she asks. You nod solemnly and she chuckles. You let yourself drift deeper into the market street. Vendors display their goods proudly now. Spices in tiny baskets, figs piled like small purple jewels, honey cakes wrapped in leaves. A man sells garlands woven from fresh bay leaves. You pause near him, inhaling the sharp, green aroma. He hands you one to smell properly. You close your eyes, letting the scent roll softly across your senses. It's refreshing, almost cool against the heat of the day. Nearby, a woman demonstrates her wares. Small clay lamps shaped in simple curves. One lamp glows faintly with a freshly lit wick. The flame wavers in the breeze. It sent a mix of olive oil and faint smoke. She holds it closer for you to inspect, and the warmth brushes your fingertips. You thank her gently and move on. You pause near a well-used fountain at the center of the street. The water flows steadily from a carved stone spout shaped like a lion's head. Its mouth releases a constant trickle that splashes quietly into a basin below. The sound is rhythmic, calming, slicing through the busyness like a thread of serenity. You cup your hands, gathering a small pool of water. It's cool, bracingly so. You drink slowly. The mineral taste touches your tongue, crisp and clean. Two children stand nearby, tossing pebbles into the water, watching the ripples broaden and fade. They argue softly about whose pebble made the larger circle. You smile at their earnest debate. Their tunics flutter in the breeze, pale from many washings. They shoot you curious glances before returning to their self-appointed contest. A donkey ambles past, led by an elderly man carrying woven baskets. The donkey's hooves clack softly against the stone. Dust rises in thin puffs behind each step. The animal snorts, flicking its ears, unconcerned with anything except the slow procession of its day. The man gives you a brief nod, as if acknowledging your shared preference for a measured pace. As you continue down the avenue, you catch the scent of resin and wood. A carpenter has set up his station outside a small workshop. Shavings curl across the ground like pale ribbons. He works a plank with a long plane, pushing it forward in smooth, even strokes. Each movement produces a soft whisk, satisfying in its steadiness. The air around him smells of pine and sawdust, dry, sharp, comforting. He doesn't look up as you pass, but the cadence of his work seems to align with your footsteps. You find it soothing. There is a kind of quiet pride in the rhythm, a confidence built on repetition. You carry the sound with you as you move on. The sun now sits high enough to press heat onto your shoulders. A bead of sweat traces a slow path down the side of your face. You wipe it with the back of your hand, feeling the fine layer of dust that has settled on your skin. Rome doesn't let anyone stay pristine for long. Perhaps it considers immaculate faces suspicious. A woman selling fruit waves you over. Her stall is shaded by a piece of faded cloth stretched between two poles. The fruits shine like small treasures. Apples, pears, clusters of grapes. She offers you a slice of apple. You accept. It's crisp, cool, slightly tart, with a faint sweetness that lingers. You thank her, and she smiles at you with the serene confidence of someone who knows her produce does half the work for her. You notice a musician a little further down, a man plucking gently at a lyre. His melody drifts lightly through the street. It's simple, unhurried, a tune with no intention of hurrying anyone. He plays with his eyes half closed, as though dreaming. The notes intertwine with the market's pulse, creating a warm counterpoint to the day's noise. You find yourself walking toward the baths now, drawn by the heavier exhalations of steam. The building appears more alive in the midday light, stone shimmering slightly, mist coiling like soft fabric. People move in and out, wrapped in towels or chatting casually. The doorways breathe heat. You pause near one entrance, feeling the humid wave roll toward you. It smells of warm stone, clean water, crushed herbs, and something faintly metallic. The moisture clings to your skin almost instantly. A small part of you yearns to step inside, to sink into the warmth. But for now, the threshold is enough. Beside the baths, A stall sells small cakes flavored with honey and poppy seed. You buy one out of curiosity. The cake is soft, sticky at the edges, fragrant. The honey sinks into your tongue, warm and mellow. As you chew, you notice the poppy seeds cracking lightly under your teeth, like tiny sparks. You savor the sweetness slowly, letting your mind wander. A sudden gust of wind dances down the alley, cool and mischievous. It ruffles your tunic and sends loose dust swirling in brief circles. For a moment, the day feels lighter, almost playful. You imagine the city exhaling gently, trying to keep its inhabitants from wilting under the coming heat. You continue your wandering until you reach a quieter crossroad, where the buildings lean close enough to create a strip of shade that falls over the stones like a cool blanket. You step into it gratefully. The difference in temperature is subtle but welcome. You close your eyes and breathe deeply, letting the shade soothe your skin. Somewhere above, a shutter knocks softly in the wind. A voice hums a gentle tune. A cat slinks along the edge of the wall, tail curling like a question mark. It studies you briefly before deciding you are unremarkable, then moves on with regal indifference. You find a small stone block to sit on. The stone is warm on one side, cool on the other. You choose the cool edge. Your body relaxes slightly, grateful for the pause. Sweat cools on your temples. The city hums softly around you, no longer demanding your attention, simply offering its presence. You watch a man carrying 2 baskets on a pole across his shoulders. The baskets sway with each step, filled with herbs, mint, thyme, rosemary. The scent trails behind him like a promise. You inhale reflexively, the freshness cutting through the midday heaviness. The light around you thickens. Shadows shorten. The sun sits high now, steady and commanding. And as you sit there in the merciful ribbon of shade, catching your breath, listening to the city drift around you, you remind yourself, it's still only midday. You rise from the cool stone with a small stretch, feeling the warmth of the day begin to coil around your arms again. The shade has been kind, but the city beckons, nudging you gently forward. You brush the dust from your tunic, a futile gesture, but somehow comforting, and step back into the sunlit path. The heat has thickened now, not oppressive yet, but present in every breath. The stones underfoot radiate a soft warmth that seeps through your sandals. You hear the bath sigh again, releasing a lazy plume of steam that drifts upward like a half-awake spirit. The moisture in the air softens the sharpest edges of the heat, smoothing it into something almost velvety. You wander toward the opposite side of the insula, curious about the quieter pockets where midday life thins into gentler rhythms. The alley bends slightly, revealing the entrance to a small workshop you hadn't noticed before. The door is propped open with a chunk of terracotta, letting out a faint scent of leather and oil. Inside, a cobbler works on a half-finished sandal. His hands move slowly, deliberately, coaxing the leather into shape. You linger at the doorway, drawn by the earthy, warm smell of treated hides. The cobbler glances up only briefly, nodding once before returning to his stitching. The sound is soft, thread pulling through leather, the occasional tap of a small wooden hammer. It's a steady, heartbeat-like rhythm, soothing in its predictability. You step inside just a little, enough to avoid blocking the breeze that pushes through the doorway. The air is cooler here, shaded by the surrounding buildings. Leather scraps lie scattered like curled leaves on the floor. A pair of sandals hangs from a hook, still drying. The scent of the oil used to soften them lingers sweetly in the air. You run a fingertip along one sandal strap, smooth, warm, pliable. The cobbler grunts approvingly, as if to say, "Yes, that one turned out well." You thank him with a quiet gesture and step back into the alley. The sunlight seems brighter after the dim workshop, almost gleaming. You blink slowly, letting your eyes settle. Not far ahead, a group of women sit in a shaded courtyard spinning wool. Their hands move with practiced familiarity, pulling and twisting the fibers into neat, even strands. A basket of raw wool sits beside them, soft and white with a faint scent of lanolin. As the fibers glide through their fingers, you hear the whisper-soft sound of wool sliding against skin, gentle, rhythmic, almost hypnotic. One of the women catches your gaze and offers a small smile. Her spindle spins effortlessly, humming a soft wooden whir. Another woman laughs at something her neighbor says, the sound light and warm. You linger a moment, feeling the scene settle into your senses like warm water. A breeze threads through the courtyard, lifting the wool fibers slightly and carrying with it a faint scent of rosemary from a nearby kitchen. You take in the smells, the earthy sweetness of wool, the herbal sharpness of rosemary, the mild dustiness of sunlit stone. Together they form a tapestry of midday life, soft, grounded, quietly alive. You continue on, passing a man patching a section of wall with fresh plaster. The mixture in his wooden bucket smells of wet lime and sand. He slaps it onto the wall with smooth, combing strokes. The wet plaster gleams briefly before settling into a matte finish. You watch as he smooths the edges carefully with a flat tool. His movements are slow, patient. This is a task done not quickly but correctly. He doesn't look at you, but there's a quiet dignity in his focus. Further along, the alley splits again. You choose the narrower path, its stones partially shaded by a wooden balcony overhead. The air here is cooler, carrying hints of cooking from unseen windows. Garlic, lentils, something frying lightly. Your stomach perks up with renewed interest. You follow the scent until you reach a modest doorway where a woman is ladling stew into bowls. She offers you a taste without asking who you are. The stew is thick, fragrant with cumin and bay, warm enough to make your shoulders relax. You savor it slowly, letting its depth bloom on your tongue. She smiles knowingly. Food in Rome is rarely just nourishment. It is a quiet bond between strangers. You thank her with a small bow of your head and continue on, wiping a stray drop of stew from your chin with the back of your hand. The warmth settles pleasantly in your stomach. Ahead, the light dims again as you approach an archway connecting two buildings. Its stone surface is cool to the touch. You place your palm upon it briefly, feeling the temperature contrast. Sun hot outside, gently chilled beneath this sheltered pass. You breathe in deeply, appreciating the small mercy of shade. Beyond the arch, a short set of steps leads down to a small service courtyard. Here, a pair of young men carry large clay vessels together, their movements careful but playful. They tease one another gently, laughing under their breath while trying not to trip. The vessels are filled with water. Their cool, wet surfaces glisten in the light. You hear the faint slosh as they shift their weight, the water inside moving like a restless sleeper. A cat lies in the center of the courtyard, basking in a sliver of sun. It is sprawled elegantly, tail flicking lazily. One ear twitches as you pass, but the cat does not bother to look at you. Clearly, you pose no threat to its midday serenity. You step out of the courtyard and find yourself back near the entrance of your insula. The building stands tall, looming gently over the street. Its bricks bear the heat willingly, glowing in muted reds and browns. A bird hops along the ledge above your doorway, tilting its head as though assessing you. After a moment, it decides you are harmless and resumes pecking at some unseen morsel. You enter the insula again. The coolness inside feels delightful against your warm skin. You pause to absorb it before climbing the stairs, step by slow step. The rope railing presses faintly into your palm, warm from countless other hands. Upstairs, a shutter bangs softly in the wind. Someone mutters something muffled and resigned. On your floor, a neighbor has laid out a row of damp cloths to dry. The scent of soap and water hangs gently in the air, clean, familiar, soothing. You step around the cloths carefully, mindful not to disturb their arrangement. You return to your room. The light has shifted once more. Now it pours through the shutters at a lower angle, illuminating the center of the room in a warm pool of gold. Dust motes drift in the beam, lazily unhurried. Your cot looks particularly inviting now, as though suggesting a midday rest. But the day isn't done yet. You stand by the window, pushing the shutter open just enough to feel the air outside. A warm breeze brushes your face, soft, with the faintest touch of moisture. The sounds of the street below drift upward. The clatter of pottery, distant chatter, a laugh carried by the wind. You take a slow, deep breath. The air tastes faintly of stone and sun, tinged with the ghost of herbs carried upward from nearby kitchens. Your wrists still feel cool from the shade earlier. Your back holds the memory of sunlight. You shift your weight, letting your body settle into a comfortable sway. The quiet inside your room deepens. The heat softens into something languid. A distant splash from the baths rolls through the air, muffled but recognizable. It sounds inviting, like a half-whispered promise of relief. Someone sets down a bucket upstairs, the thud gentle but audible. You let your mind drift with it all, the warmth, the smells, the sounds swirling into one slow, shimmering moment. The city breathes around you, steady and ancient. You smile faintly. It is still only midday. You linger a moment by the open shutter, letting the midday warmth brush lightly across your cheek. The breeze is slow now, almost drowsy, like the city itself is pausing to consider whether it should continue with the day or simply take a nap. You can relate, but instead of resting, you step back toward the door, drawn again by the quiet choreography of life in the insula. The corridor hums with small domestic sounds. A pair of sandals scrape the floor as someone shuffles inside their room. A clay cup clinks softly on a wooden table. You catch the faint aroma of roasted barley drifting through the air. Someone brewing a midday drink, perhaps thickened with herbs. The scent is earthy and comforting, like warm grain after rain. You descend the staircase slowly, your hand gliding once more along the rope railing. It feels warmer now, and a bit smoother, as though countless palms in the last few hours have polished it with their passing. The building creaks in familiar places, the small joint on the second landing, the hollow board 2 steps above the base. Each noise feels like a known voice greeting you. At the bottom, the potter is gone. His tools rest neatly beside the repaired vessel, which now sits upright, drying in the mild draft. The clay has lightened in color slightly, though it still smells faintly of wet earth. You touch the rim gently. It is cool, smooth, a little soft. You pull back your hand before you leave a fingerprint. The jar seems quietly proud of its restoration. Outside, the midday sun presses more firmly now. It glints off the stones, casting pale reflections that shimmer like thin silver threads. The air has thickened just enough to slow the edges of movement. Even the merchants seem to call out with a touch less vigor, as if they too feel the heat pooling over the city. You take a step into the street and feel the warmth wrap around you like a loose cloak. A bird flutters overhead, briefly scattering a swirl of dust that drifts down in lazy spirals. The baths release another sigh of steam, and you taste its mineral sweetness in the air. You turn toward a quieter lane, one that curves gently behind the insula and leads to a smaller cluster of homes and workshops. The stones here are uneven, but shaded in parts by overhanging wooden balconies. As you walk, the temperature dips slightly, thanks to the narrow architecture funneling cooler drafts from hidden corners. A woman sits on a stool outside her doorway, shelling peas into a clay bowl. The peas patter softly, one by one, like small raindrops. She glances at you with a tiny, amused smile, then returns to her work. The scent of the fresh peas is subtle, green, crisp, almost sweet. You watch her fingers move with deft efficiency before continuing on. Further ahead, a young apprentice sweeps the street with a bunch of twigs tied into a broom. The sweeping sound is soft, rhythmic, like a gentle brushing of cloth. Dust rises in brief clouds before settling again in thin layers. He pauses to wipe his brow, leaving a streak of dirt across his forehead. He doesn't notice, and somehow that makes the moment feel even more human. You bend slightly to touch the stones beneath your feet. They're warm, very warm, almost like sun-heated pottery. Your fingertips gather a faint layer of dust, which clings to the lines of your skin. You brush them off gently, watching the grains float down. Not far from you, a pair of older men sit in the shade, playing a quiet game with small stones. They move their pieces slowly, pausing often to consider. Their voices are low and soft, blending easily with the ambient hum of the day. You catch a fragment of their conversation. Something about weather, something about neighbors, nothing urgent. Their calm presence settles over the space like a light blanket. You follow a faint smell of amphora wax and resin until you reach a stall where a merchant is treating jars. He brushes warm resin along the seams, sealing them carefully. The aroma is rich, earthy, slightly sweet, with a hint of smoke from the small brazier he uses to melt it. He works in quiet concentration, each brushstroke deliberate. Some resin drips onto the stones, cooling quickly into amber flecks. You crouch slightly to touch one of the cool drops. It's hard already, smooth, cool, with a faint tackiness at the edges. You hold it between your fingers before placing it back down. The merchant gives you a slow nod without interrupting his task. You continue on, drifting toward the far side of the lane where a small fig tree grows in a courtyard. Its leaves cast delicate shadows on the stone, moving faintly with the smallest whisper of wind. One ripe fig lies on the ground, split at the side. The scent is deep and sweet, almost floral. A bee circles it with lazy determination. You step around the tree and into a slightly darker passageway. The air here is cooler still, shaded deeply by the overhanging structures. The scent changes too, more stone, more dampness from water stored in dark corners. You hear a faint drip somewhere, rhythmic and patient. Emerging from the passageway, you find yourself near a modest fountain built against the wall of a house. Its basin is small, but the water trickles steadily, creating soft ripples. You cup your hands again and take a slow drink. The water is refreshing, cold, with a crisp mineral bite that wakes the back of your throat. You linger, letting the cool droplets fall between your fingers. A few steps away, a woman kneels beside a basket of herbs, sorting them into neat bundles. The air around her smells strongly of mint, sharp, invigorating, and of thyme, earthy and warm. She binds each bundle with simple twine. When she catches your gaze, she offers you a small sprig of mint. You rub it gently between your fingers, releasing its bright aroma. You thank her with a small nod as you move on. You take the long way back toward the insula. The sun now feels brighter, the air more settled. A few people retreat indoors or into shaded corners, seeking refuge from the warm hours. But the city does not sleep. It merely softens. Near the edge of the insula's block, you notice a small group of boys rolling a wooden hoop along the street. Their laughter bounces lightly off the walls. The hoop rattles across the stones, clangs against a wall, then spins wildly. One boy catches it triumphantly, lifting it above his head like a trophy. You can't help but smile at their enthusiasm. You pause outside a perfumer's stall. The scents drifting from within are gentle but varied. Rose, myrtle, a hint of cinnamon bark. Clay containers line the shelves, each stoppered tightly. A small vial sits open beside the merchant, releasing a light floral aroma into the warm air. The mixture is delicate, soothing. You linger a moment longer before stepping back. As you round the final corner toward your insula, a warm breeze sweeps past you, carrying with it a blend of midday smells. Bread cooling on wooden boards, warm dust, faint smoke from a brazier, a wisp of herbs from some unseen window. The breeze ruffles the hem of your tunic and grazes the back of your neck, cool enough to make you pause in appreciation. You step inside the insula again. The contrast is immediate, the quiet, the dimness, the subtle drop in temperature. The building holds its shade like a gentle secret. You climb slowly toward your room, your footsteps muffled by the soft wood. Your room welcomes you with its calm brightness. The sunbeam inside has shifted once more, stretching toward the opposite wall. The air is warm but still. You sit on the edge of your cot, letting the midday quiet settle into your bones. You breathe deeply, tasting the faint salt of sweat on your lips, the ghost of mint from the sprig rubbed between your fingers. The sense memories layer themselves gently around you. Warm stone, cool shade, herbs, dust, resin. The steady hum of Rome carried on the wind. You lean back, letting the stillness absorb you, and you remind yourself with a small, amused breath, midday has only just begun. You sit for a moment on the edge of your cot, letting the stillness pool around your ankles like cool water. The midday quiet in your small room feels thick and almost fragile. Outside, the world continues its bustling rhythm. But here, the insula breathes slowly, as though it too has grown drowsy under the weight of the sun. You stand again, stretching your arms overhead. Your shoulders loosen with a small, satisfying pull. A faint creak from the wall answers you, as if the building is stretching alongside. You run your fingertips along the plaster, warm now, holding the memory of sunlight baked deep into its bones. A sound drifts into your room, the soft, uneven flap of a nearby shutter. It swings lazily, tapping wood against wood with a muted rhythm. Somewhere above you, a child laughs. A short, bright sound before being hushed by an adult voice. The hush is gentle, unhurried. No one is in a rush right now. You step into the corridor. The light here is dimmer, filtered through layers of wood and cloth. A faint aroma lingers, something herbal, perhaps dried laurel mixed with simmering lentils. The scent tugs you forward. On the stairway, the usual groans of would seem quieter, as though softened by the heat. You descend slowly, letting your hand glide once more along the familiar rope railing. The fibers feel slightly smoother now, warmed and worn by the many palms that have passed today. At the bottom, the repaired pot still waits on its shelf, its surface drying into a uniform pale clay. It no longer smells of wet soil. Instead, it carries a faint dusty sweetness. You nod to it, as though acknowledging its quiet progress. Outside, the sunlight blazes brighter, but the alley around the insula is calmer. Many people have retreated indoors, leaving the street in a slow, lazy hush. The stones shimmer faintly, their surfaces hazy with rising warmth. You step carefully, mindful of the heat radiating upward. A man leans against the wall near the baths, fanning himself with a folded piece of parchment. The motion is slow, more symbolic than effective. He offers you a weary, conspiratorial look, the shared expression of two people enduring the same midday sun. You return the look with a half-smile before continuing onward. The baths exhale another warm breath. The steam curls upward, gentler now, as if even the water has decided to relax. You walk toward the wall, feeling the humidity wrap lightly around you. It carries with it the mineral scent of heated stone and clean water, simple, soothing. You wander toward a shaded portion of the bath complex where a few people sit or lounge. Some chat quietly, others doze. A pair of older women talk in low tones while shelling nuts, dropping the cracked shells into a small basket. The shells make a soft, dry clatter. One of the women pauses to give you a polite nod. The other wipes her brow with the corner of her shawl. A man nearby leans over a shallow basin, splashing his face with cool water. The droplets shine briefly on his skin before evaporating in the dry heat. He sighs loudly but not unhappily. That sigh says everything about midday in Rome. You continue deeper into the quieter street, where the noise of the market fades into a distant hum. The air here is thicker, but the shade between the tall insulae offers small pockets of relief. You duck into one such pocket, a strip of cool shadow lying across the stones like a dark ribbon. The temperature drop is small but immediately noticeable. You pause, letting your skin appreciate the change. Nearby, a sun-browned man sells small clay cups of watered wine. His stall is makeshift, just a wooden plank balanced on crates, but his service is steady. The wine is cool, faintly tart, and not particularly strong. You take a cup and sip slowly. It washes the warm dryness from your mouth, leaving a soft, fruity echo behind. The man asks if the heat is treating you kindly. You shrug. He laughs softly, understanding. From where you stand, you can see the rooftops of the insulae rising above the street. A jagged skyline of wood, laundry, and narrow chimneys. Some cloths hang limp, others sway lazily. A line of tunics sways with a little more confidence, catching a breeze invisible at ground level. You watch the shadows of the laundry ripple like faint waves against the wall. You wander deeper into the residential lane. The quiet here is almost tender. A dog sleeps under a small overhang, curled tightly into itself. Its tail twitches at some dream. You step softly so as not to disturb it. A pot of herbs rests beside a doorway, basil and marjoram, their leaves glossy and fragrant despite the heat. You brush them lightly with your hand, releasing a burst of aroma into the midday air. Further down, you pass a doorway where an elderly man sits peeling fruit with a small bronze knife. The peel falls in long spirals into a bowl. He glances up as you pass, eyes soft with the easy patience of age. He gestures toward the sliced fruit, a small offering. You accept a piece with a grateful nod. The fruit is cool, sweet, refreshing. You thank him silently, and he returns his attention to his peeling. You reach a crossroads where the sun and shade divide the street neatly. You take the shaded path, instinct guiding you. The stones are cooler here. A small breeze funnels between the buildings, carrying the faint scent of damp cloth and cold stone. A few neighbors linger in doorways, chatting quietly. One woman carries a clay pot against her hip, the surface shining with a faint condensation. She wipes it with her sleeve, as though keeping the coolness hidden. The breeze grows stronger as you continue. It brings with it the distant scent of pine resin, perhaps from carpenters working on roofs or from stored timbers drying in the sun. The mix of pine and warm dust creates an oddly comforting perfume, like a memory of forests that no longer exist within the reach of crowded Roman streets. You turn a corner and find yourself near a small shrine built into a wall. A clay lamp burns quietly inside, its flame steady despite the drafts. Fresh flowers rest beside it, their fragrance soft but detectable, a faint sweetness carried on the warm air. You linger respectfully, feeling the coolness of the shaded alcove. The tiny flame flickers once, as though greeting you. A child appears suddenly, darting past with a wooden toy clutched in both hands. His feet slap lightly against the stone, sending soft echoes down the alley. His mother calls after him in a tone balanced between affection and fatigue. The child eventually slows, turning the corner with a triumphant flourish of his toy. You continue back toward the main street. The sun still dominates the sky, but its intensity has begun to mellow ever so slightly. A thin veil of cloud drifts lazily overhead, offering a brief reprieve. You lift your face to it, welcoming the softer light. The relief is momentary, but pleasant. As you approach the entrance of your insula, you hear the familiar murmur of neighbors. Doors opening, voices drifting, the occasional scrape of pottery or clink of metal. The building feels alive once more, as though rousing itself from a midday rest. You step inside. The interior is cooler now, the stone and plaster having absorbed enough breeze to dull the heat. You climb the stairs slowly, savoring the shade. A neighbor leans over the railing from the floor above, pouring a small trickle of water from a basin onto a plant. Some droplets fall past you, landing on the steps with tiny splashes. One drop catches the back of your hand. Cool, startling, pleasant. You reach your floor, and the corridor feels softer now. The daylight filters in indirectly, bouncing from wall to wall. You pause outside your door for a moment, listening. The quiet hum of the insula is gentle, welcoming. Inside, the room glows with a muted golden tone. The sunbeam has shifted again, now illuminating the corner where your stool rests. The air is warm but softened, touched by the faint coolness carried up from the lower floors. You sit once more on your cot, letting the warmth cradle your back. You exhale slowly, allowing the weight of the day to settle lightly around you, not pressing but resting. The distant splash from the baths drifts in again, gentle, soothing, repetitive. Someone laughs faintly in the street below. Pot clinks somewhere upstairs. Dust motes swirl lazily in the sunbeam, moving like dancers who've forgotten their choreography, but not their enthusiasm. You rest your palms on your knees, leaning forward slightly. Your breath steadies, your thoughts quieten. The room feels almost suspended in time, and you remind yourself with a soft smile at the lingering stretch of the day. It is still only early afternoon. You rise slowly from the cot again, loosening your joints with a quiet stretch. The afternoon has settled into its long, warm stride. Not hurried, not fiery, just steady, like a great brass pot simmering gently on a brazier. You sense that the city has accepted the pace, too. Voices below sound calmer. Footsteps have softened. Even the occasional shout from a merchant has lost its sharpness, worn down by heat. You open your shutter just a little, careful not to let it slam. A breath of warm air drifts through the gap, thick, slightly humid, touched by the faint tang of steam. The baths are still at work, but their enthusiasm has dimmed to a steady hum. You hear the occasional splash, muffled by walls and distance, like a hand stirring a large basin. Your room feels close and gentle, but curiosity pushes you outward once more. You step into the corridor, where the shadowed air feels pleasantly cooler. Someone has sprinkled water along the floorboards, leaving thin dark trails that evaporate slowly. The scent of damp wood rises faintly, earthy, calming. Voices upstairs discuss something about grain prices. The tone is tired, resigned, not angry. You pass beneath the conversation like a traveler beneath a tree's branches. The rope railing feels smoother now, warmed by the day. You descend step by step, feeling the wood sigh under your weight. At the bottom of the stairs, you pause. The repaired clay jar is gone from the shelf. Someone must have collected it. In its place lies only a faint dust ring, like a memory of where it once rested. Even in a bustling city, objects come and go quietly. Outside, the light has softened into a deeper gold. The alley seems slower, as though wrapped in a thin layer of wool. A woman fans herself with a folded piece of papyrus. The fan makes a soft whiff-whiff sound. A man carrying a basket of bread walks past you, the aroma warm and comforting, like a hug made of wheat. You decide to follow that small trail of scents into the afternoon. A group of neighbors has gathered near the baths, not bathing, just sitting on crates or leaning against walls, escaping the heat indoors. One offers a tired half-smile as you pass. You return it, sharing in the lazy camaraderie of the hour. Past them, the street widens slightly into a marketplace that feels half asleep now. Some stalls remain open, though their owners lean back on stools with languid expressions. A young vendor sprinkles water onto the stones around his stall, darkening them and trying to coax a bit of coolness. The droplets release a small, satisfying hiss as they meet the hot surface. You pause near a stall selling herbs and dried flowers. The air here smells green and dusky, sage, thyme, dried rose petals. The merchant sits with his eyes half closed. A breeze stirs a handful of loose petals on his table, sending them drifting like tiny faded butterflies. One petal lands near your sandal. You nudge it gently aside. A boy at the next stall sells simple wooden spoons. He dozes upright, his head bobbing slightly. His mother nudges him awake with a gentle elbow. You smile sympathetically. The boy tries to appear alert, rubbing his eyes, then brightening reflexively when he sees you. You pick up a spoon, weighing its lightness. The wood smells faintly smoky. You set it back with a grateful nod, and he beams, as though you've just performed a great kindness. The warmth is heavier now, pressing down softly from above. But a breeze slips into the street, stirring tunics and carrying the faint scent of figs from a distant kitchen. You decide to follow it. It leads you toward a small open space between several insulae, a courtyard of sorts, with a few benches and a young tree whose shade is modest but sincere. You take a seat on the bench nearest the tree. The wood is warm, smoothed by many hours of use. You rest your elbow on your knee and let the stillness settle into your body. In the courtyard, a pair of women sit spinning thread. Their fingers dance effortlessly across the fibers. A spindle whirs softly, its shadow turning across the stone floor in long, slow arcs. One woman hums a tune, soft, repetitive, hypnotic. The melody merges with the faint rustle of the tree's leaves, weaving into the afternoon silence. A man sits nearby, mending a fishing net. His hands work slowly, patiently, looping twine through small knots. The net smells faintly of salt, though the sea is far from here, carries its own memory. The man glances at you once, nods politely, then returns to his repairs. A cat stretches under the bench, its back arching in a slow curve. The movement looks luxurious, indulgent. It yawns, revealing small white teeth, then curls back into a loaf-shaped rest. You envy its ease. The courtyard holds a peaceful warmth, but eventually you rise, feeling the impulse to drift again. You walk down a lane where the stones are smoother, worn by countless footsteps. A faint scent of honey lingers here, guiding you toward a small stall where a woman sells honeyed pastries. The pastries themselves glow slightly in the afternoon sun. Sticky, golden, inviting. She hands you a small piece without a word, as though she knew you needed sweetness. You taste it carefully. It is warm, soft, with a deep floral sweetness that spreads slowly across your tongue. You close your eyes briefly, savoring. When you open them, she's already begun wrapping more pastries for another customer. You thank her quietly and continue on. You wander toward a set of steps that lead to a raised walkway between two buildings. The stone railing is warm to the touch. From here, you can see into several narrow courtyards. Stone wells, stray baskets, laundry lines fluttering with fatigue. In one courtyard, a woman scrubs a pot with sand, her movements circular and steady. The sand scrapes softly, like gentle rain on a clay roof. She pauses to stretch, cracking her back slightly, before continuing. In another courtyard, a group of children chase each other around a stack of crates. Their laughter is not loud. It's airy, as though even their games have been softened by the heat. A girl stops to adjust her sandal, then races to catch up, her braids trailing behind her. You continue down the walkway until you find a small section of wall bathed in shadow. You rest there, leaning your back against the cool stone. The relief is immediate. You close your eyes briefly, letting the cool seep through your tunic. The breeze picks up again, drifting upward from the street. It carries with it a potpourri of scents: olive oil warming on a pan, dusty rope, figs, and the faint metallic tang of distant tools. You breathe it all in slowly. After a moment, you push yourself away from the wall and descend back to the street. A water seller walks past, balancing two buckets on a pole. The water inside sloshes rhythmically with each of his steps. You hear the splash, the shifting weight, the quiet grunt of the man as he adjusts his shoulders. The sound is strangely soothing, a small reminder that even midday has its work. A neighbor waves at you from her doorway. She holds a fan made of woven reeds, its pattern geometric and simple. She gestures toward the heat with a look of practiced resignation. You wave back, sharing the sentiment without words. You make your way slowly toward the baths again, drawn by the lingering humidity in the air. The closer you get, the more the warmth shifts, less dry, more enveloping, as though the world is exhaling against your skin. Someone pours a bucket of water onto the stones outside the entrance. It spreads in a dark puddle that reflects the golden light, then begins to evaporate in a thin, wavering mist. You step around it carefully, feeling the coolness rise briefly around your ankles. You wander past a small sculpture near the wall, an old, worn figure whose features have been softened by time. The surface is warm and smooth. You touch it lightly, tracing the gentle curve of its shoulder. The stone hums quietly with stored heat. The baths sigh again, releasing a soft plume of steam that brushes your face as it rises. You close your eyes, letting the moisture cool your skin for a moment. Then, slowly, you turn and begin the walk back to your insula. Inside, the air is dimmer, but the warmth still follows you down the hallway. The wooden boards creak under your steps in their familiar cadence. You reach your room and step inside. The sunlight has shifted once more, forming a narrow stripe across your cot. Dust floats lazily within it. The air smells faintly of warm plaster, herbs carried from below, and the lingering sweetness of the pastry you tasted earlier. You sit on your stool, letting your spine unwind. The room is quiet, calm, cradled in the gentler part of afternoon. You inhale deeply. Your skin is warm. Your clothes hold the scent of sun and dust, and your mind drifts like the motes in the sunbeam. And once again, you remind yourself, the afternoon is only just beginning to stretch. You rest on the stool for another quiet breath, letting the stillness fold itself around your shoulders. The late afternoon light drifts lazily through the shutters, stretched thin and gentle. It is a softer gold now, less insistent, more contemplative. The insula seems to sense the change too. The thuds, clinks, and chatter that marked midday have mellowed into something calmer, as if the building itself is exhaling. You rise again, slow and unhurried, your knees bending with a soft murmur of protest. The soles of your sandals touch the warm floor, holding just a whisper of collected heat. You smooth your tunic and step into the corridor, letting your fingertips slide along the plaster wall. The hallway feels different in late afternoon, cooler, quieter, almost coaxing. Someone has left a basin near the door, half full of water, its surface reflecting a thin patch of sunlight like a small private moon. You pause to dip 2 fingers into it. The water is cool, shockingly so. It wakes your skin in a gentle burst. Descending the stairs, you hear a muffled conversation from behind a door. Laughter, pots shifting, the soft thrum of domestic life continuing behind closed spaces. The air grows cooler as you approach the bottom floor. The potter's shelf sits empty, though a faint dusty ring still marks the shape of his last creation. The ghost of clay hangs in the air, barely there, but real enough to smell if you breathe slowly. You step outside. The light has changed yet again. Afternoon has tilted toward early evening, painting the alley in long, honey-colored shapes. Shadows cling to the walls like silk. The heat has thinned, softened, losing the hard edge it held at midday. You inhale, catching hints of cooling stone, distant spices, and the faint sweetness of figs left too long in the sun. The street is livelier now. People have ventured back outside, drawn by the gentler air. A pair of children chase each other with renewed energy, their sandals slapping lightly on the stone. A vendor sweeps the front of his stall, the bristles whispering along the ground. A woman carrying folded linens walks past you, the fabric warm and fragrant from hours under the sun. You decide to drift with the renewed energy. Near the baths, the steam has softened into thin wisps that curl like pale ribbon. The walls radiate warmth, but not with the intensity of earlier. A few people lounge outside the entrance, wrapped in towels or chatting casually. One man gestures animatedly with a cup of watered wine, his voice stretching comfortably into the air. The cup glints in the late sun, reflecting points of gold onto the wall. A group of teenagers sits nearby, sharing roasted nuts from a clay bowl. The scent of warm salt and toasted shells drifts toward you. One cracks a nut between his fingers, the shell snapping softly. He tosses you a brief glance, then continues his conversation with the lazy confidence of youth. You wander further into the heart of the street, where the market is stirring back to life. A fish seller rinses his stall with fresh water, the splashes catching the light like tiny shards of silver. A woman with a basket of vegetables rearranges her goods, the colors brightening under the golden sun. Rich greens, deep purples, the soft cream of onions. The smell of baking returns, carried on a small current of breeze. You turn your head toward it almost involuntarily. A nearby bakery has reopened its shutters, and the air is thick with the scent of bread warming for the evening meal. You approach and see the baker sliding a new round loaf onto a wooden board. The crust crackles softly, releasing a warm, toasty aroma. He nods to you without stopping his work, sweat beating at his temple but his movements steady and content. You drift past a small group of neighbors who chat in faintly animated tones now that the worst heat has passed. One gestures with a jar of olives, the brine sloshing against the sides. Another folds her arms and leans back against the wall, her expression soft, unbothered. Their conversation forms a steady murmur that blends with the soft backdrop of the lively late afternoon. At the edge of the street, a vendor has set out a tray of cooled pastries, round, dusted with crushed nuts, smelling faintly of honey and citrus. You pick one up, feeling its soft weight in your hand. The pastry yields slightly under your fingers. You take a bite. The taste is mellow, sweet without being bold, fragrant with orange peel and warm spice. It dissolves slowly on your tongue, leaving a quiet aftertaste that makes you breathe just a little deeper. Not far from you, a man repairs a woven basket, sliding new reeds into place with gentle precision. Each reed makes a soft tick as it fits snugly against its neighbor. He works without urgency, his hands steady and sure. You watch him a moment, appreciating the simple rhythm of his craft. A cat appears suddenly from beneath a cart, its fur dusty from the day. It stretches luxuriously, tail curling into the shape of a small question mark. It eyes you with lazy curiosity, then wanders off with the assured stride of a creature that belongs to no one and everyone at once. You continue down the alley, drawn toward a series of small workshops. One carpenter shapes a small stool with a curved blade, the shavings curling at his feet like thin wood blossoms. The air smells of fresh-cut timber, clean, sweet, almost cool compared to the warmth of the city. He nods once as you pass, then returns to his precise, careful strokes. The rooftop lines above you are beginning to glow in a softer, amber tone. Laundry flutters gently, catching a late breeze. You hear the distant rhythm of someone beating dust from a rug, a soft whump, repeated with slow consistency. The dust drifts upward in a pale cloud, illuminated by the lowering sun. You turn into a quieter lane where small household moments unfold like scenes in a slow play. A woman stirs a pot outside her doorway, the aroma of herbs rising in warm waves. Oregano, coriander, perhaps a hint of garlic. A small brazier glows beneath the pot, crackling faintly. She stirs lazily, as if the spoon itself already knows the recipe. Further along, a young man waters potted plants with a small clay jug. The water pours in a thin, steady line, darkening the soil with quiet hunger. He hums softly, a gentle melody that seems to spill from the plants themselves. When he notices you, he nods politely and steps aside to let you pass. A sudden gust of wind sweeps down the lane, fluttering the corner of your tunic and carrying with it the scent of cooling stone. The wind feels cooler now, not cold, not sharp, but hinting at the evening to come. You breathe it in, letting it fill your lungs with the promise of relief. You find yourself drifting toward a familiar fountain, small, modest, but dependable. The lion-headed spout releases a thin thread of water into the basin, the sound delicate and soothing. You cup your hands again and take a slow sip. The water is still cool, though no longer as shockingly cold as earlier. Tastes faintly metallic, grounding. As you rise, you notice an elderly couple sitting on a bench nearby. They share a small plate of sliced fruit, passing pieces back and forth in a comfortable, practiced way. The fruit glistens in the golden light, and the couple speaks quietly, their voices gentle and close. You watch them a moment, how naturally they move together, how softly they lean toward one another when speaking. The scene feels warm, grounding, human. You continue on, the light around you mellowing deeper into honey and amber. The sounds of the city shift, less clatter, more murmur. The rhythm slows, like a tired heartbeat settling into a relaxed tempo. Returning to your insula, you notice the building glowing softly in the late golden hour. The bricks appear warmer, almost alive. The doorway stands slightly ajar, letting a thin band of cool interior shade spill into the alley. Inside, the temperature is noticeably lower. The air smells faintly of plaster cooling and a hint of supper being prepared somewhere nearby. You climb the stairs slowly, savoring the quiet creaks and the gentle dimness. At your floor, a neighbor is airing out a blanket, shaking it gently near the window. Dust falls in a small cascade of golden flecks. She nods at you with a tired but kind smile. You return the gesture before stepping into your room. The light has shifted once again. Now it stretches long and soft across the floor, painting the walls in muted gold. The air is warm, but no longer heavy. A faint breeze slips through the shutter, carrying with it a trace of herbs and cooling stone. You sit on your cot, letting the day settle around you in layers. Warmth, dust, voices, scents, shadows. You inhale deeply, letting the memory of the pastry, the herbs, the freshly cut timber drift across your senses. Your body relaxes into the quiet, and you remind yourself with a slow, amused breath. The afternoon is not finished yet. You sit for a few quiet breaths, letting the soft late afternoon light fill your small room. It stretches gently across the plastered wall like a warm ribbon, fading at the edges where shadow begins to gather. Dust motes drift lazily within the beam, turning as though they have all the time in the world. And perhaps in this hour they do. You stand again, your movements unhurried, as though your limbs have learned the city's own pace by now. The floor beneath your feet is warm, but not uncomfortably so, just warm enough to remind you that the sun is still out there, even as it begins its slow descent. A faint breeze threads in through the shutters, carrying with it the scent of cooling clay and distant cooking fires. You open your door and step back into the corridor. The air here is dimmer, tinged with a blend of household aromas, laundered cloth, simmering stew, aging wood. Someone down the hall is humming a tune, soft and uneven. It echoes faintly between the walls, like a lullaby for the building itself. The stairs greet you with their familiar groans. You descend slowly, each step responding with a polite complaint. Halfway down, you pause. Through the small opening in the outer wall, a sliver of golden light slices across the stairs, catching the floating dust like tiny sparks. You watch them drift, mesmerized for a heartbeat or two, before continuing. The doorway out of the insula is slightly ajar, letting in a warm breeze and the faint hum of the changing hour. You push it open with your fingertips. The late afternoon has ripened into evening's gentle edge. The sky above the narrow alley is brushed with soft tones, gold melting into peach, peach into a muted lavender that deepens between the rooftops. Shadows have stretched longer now, leaning toward one another like old friends meeting halfway. The stone beneath your sandals holds the warmth of the day, though the edges have begun to cool. A group of people strolls by at an easier pace than midday. Their conversations float softly in the air, unhurried, carried on the breeze like small drifting feathers. A woman near the baths fans her face with a woven palm frond. Her jewelry glints faintly in the dying sunlight. A man stands beside her, sipping from a small clay cup. They speak in low tones, smiles tugging at their mouths. The air around them smells faintly of perfumed oil, something floral and a little spicy. The baths themselves emit a quieter breath now. Steam wafts upward in thin, dreamy curls, glowing pale in the slanted sunlight. A soft chorus of splashing echoes inside, lighter and more playful than earlier. Evening bathers, perhaps. Those who prefer their relaxation after the heat has faded. You drift toward the main lane. A baker is pulling the final batch of bread from his oven, the crusts dark and richly scented. He stacks them in neat rows on a wooden board, the steam rising in faint ribbons. You breathe deeply, letting the warmth of wheat and fire settle into your chest. The baker catches your gaze and gives a small nod, his face lined with fatigue, but softened by the golden light. Nearby, a vendor ladles warm lentils into small bowls for customers. The smell of cumin and simmered garlic clings to the air. His pot bubbles gently, sighing each time he stirs it. A few people wait patiently in line, discussing the day's small events. The weather, a neighbor's new sandals, the price of honey. Their words are pleasant background notes, merging with the ambient murmur of evening. Further down the lane, a young girl arranges bunches of herbs on a piece of cloth. Parsley, mint, bay, thyme. The fragrances mingle, creating a tapestry of scents that stretches softly into the air. She sets each bundle neatly, smoothing the stems with careful fingers. When she notices you pause, she lifts one sprig of mint toward you with a shy smile. You take it, inhaling its bright coolness. It refreshes your senses like a small breeze. A pair of boys runs past, laughing breathlessly. One carries a wooden hoop, the other a stick to guide it. They veer around you at the last second, offering hurried apologies before continuing their race down the alley. Their energy seems almost miraculous in the heat-soaked quiet of the evening, but it brings a warmth of its own, a reminder that this city is always alive, always growing in small ways. You find yourself drawn toward a quieter passage between insulae, a narrow lane where the voices soften and the shadows deepen. Here, laundry hangs on high cords, fluttering gently in the dusk. Tunics, cloaks, and towels sway like tired flags. The fading light makes them glow in muted hues, creating a strange, peaceful tapestry against the walls. A woman on the second floor sprinkles water onto the walkway below to cool the air. The droplets fall like a thin, shimmering rain, catching the last sun in tiny flashes. A few drops land near your feet, darkening the stone and releasing a brief, pleasant coolness. You pause near a small doorway where a man repairs a clay pot by candlelight. The flame flickers gently, casting warm shadows on his face and the curved surface of the vessel. He brushes fresh slip along a crack, his movements steady despite the dimness. The smell of damp clay mingles with the sweet beeswax of the candle. He barely glances up, but his calm presence adds to the hush of the lane. A little further down, an older woman tends a brazier, stirring a pot that releases fragrant steam. Something herbal simmers inside, perhaps a simple stew or a medicinal tea. The steam curls lazily into the evening air, carrying a warm, woody scent. She greets you with a nod, her eyes wise and untroubled. You return the gesture and continue on. You reach a courtyard softened by the fading light. A young couple sits on the low stone bench, sharing a cluster of grapes. They speak in whispers, leaning toward each other, their silhouettes outlined softly by the sky. The grapes glisten faintly in the dimming sun, their skins catching the light before yielding to shadow. A jug of water rests beside them, condensation beads along its curved surface, glimmering like early dew. You hear the gentle plink of a single droplet falling to the stone. You move past them, leaving their small universe intact, and drift toward another doorway where a basket of fresh reeds rests. The smell of green, wet fibers is soothing, like a hint of riverbanks far from the city. Someone will weave these reeds tonight or tomorrow, shaping them into baskets, mats, or fans. You let your fingers graze one stalk. It's cool to the touch. As you continue wandering, the ambient glow deepens. Evening has arrived fully now, though twilight still lingers stubbornly between the rooftops. Lamps begin to flicker to life, one here, one there. Their flames cast small halos around doorways and windows. The air smells faintly of olive oil, smoke, cooling plaster, and supper. You return slowly toward your insula, guided by instinct more than thought. The building stands quiet but awake, its walls holding the warmth of the day like a slow-burning ember. The doorway welcomes you into its dim coolness. Inside, the stairwell is a soft echo chamber of creaks and low voices. A neighbor carries a basket up the stairs, nodding briefly as she passes. The rope railing warms your hand as you ascend, carrying the imprint of the countless others who have used it today. On your floor, the corridor glows faintly from a lamp someone has left burning in a niche. The flame shivers gently, barely audible. The air smells of herbs and floor dust, a familiar evening blend. You enter your room. The light is low now, fading quickly. The final beam of sun has thinned into a narrow line across the floor, its edges trembling. The air is warm, touched by the faintest cool draft drifting through the shutter. You sit on your cot, letting your body settle. Your back sinks softly into the wool blanket. Your breath slows. Outside, the city murmurs gently. Distant voices, softened footsteps, a faint splash from the baths, a quiet rattle of shutters closing. You close your eyes for a moment, feeling the warmth of the day dissolving into a tender evening calm. And you remind yourself with a slow breath, the evening is only just unfolding. You sit quietly for a few breaths, letting the soft weight of early evening settle around your shoulders like a shawl. The air in your room has cooled just enough to loosen the day's grip on your skin. The final sliver of sunlight slowly withdraws from the floorboards, leaving behind a gentle glow that clings to the wall before fading entirely. You inhale deeply. The room smells faintly of warm plaster, wool, and the last hints of sunlight. Outside, a voice drifts by, calm, conversational. Fading before you can make out the words. The city is settling too, easing itself into its evening rhythm. You rise again, drawn by the slow unfolding of twilight. Your feet touch the floor with little sound. You step into the corridor, where the air is cooler and edged with the faint aroma of evening meals. Someone nearby is simmering something hearty, beans perhaps, or barley softened in broth with herbs. Another neighbor's room leaks the scent of roasting garlic. The combination mingles into a comforting, lived-in perfume. You move toward the stairs, the boards creaking beneath your weight, but softly now, as though even the wood is growing sleepy. The rope railing feels cool against your palm. As you descend, you hear the faint tinkle of pottery and a low murmur of two neighbors exchanging slow, end-of-day words. At the bottom floor, the air carries a mild dampness. The baths nearby exhale a different kind of warmth now, more steam than heat. A soft mist drifts past the doorway, faint enough to barely touch your skin. When you step outside, the world has shifted into a gentler version of itself. Evening holds the city in a warm embrace. The sky between the insulae has melted into muted shades of lavender and dusky rose. Lamps flicker to life along the street. Small bowls of oil with glowing wicks, their flames dancing lightly in the breeze. Their scent is unmistakable. Olive oil warmed into a sweet, smoky perfume. You walk slowly into the alley, letting your senses expand. A dog trots past you, tail wagging, its fur warm from the stones. Two older women sit on a low bench, their voices soft as they peel fruit into a shared bowl. The fruit's skin curls downward in pale ribbons, releasing a sweet fragrance that swirls lazily in the calm air. A man carrying a bundle of sticks passes you with a nod. The sticks clatter softly in his arms, carrying the smell of dry wood and dust. He disappears into a doorway, where a child greets him with excited footsteps. A faint splash echoes from the baths, someone slipping into the water with a satisfied sigh. The steam that escapes through a small vent carries the scent of heated mineral water, soft, clean, rounded. You feel it ghost across your face. It tempers the evening air, giving it a gentle humidity that settles nicely on your skin. As you wander farther into the lane, the warmth of the day softens into something pleasant. The stones underfoot have cooled but still hold a thread of heat inside them, like a memory they are reluctant to let go. A group of neighbors sets up a small table outside their home. A clay jug sits at its center, beaded with condensation from cool water drawn from a fountain. Its surface glistens faintly in the lamplight. Cups clink lightly as the group settles onto stools, speaking in slow, easy tones. Someone laughs. A quiet, mellow laugh, softened by the hour. You drift past, catching small whiffs of wine, bread, cold stone. Further down the alley, a young woman sits beside a brazier, fanning the coals gently with a small reed fan. Sparks glow softly within the charcoal. The brazier breathes warmth into the air, carrying the scent of roasting herbs. She tilts her head slightly toward you as you pass, offering a polite smile before returning to her cooking. Nearby, an older man shuffles across the street with a jug of oil. The jug's mouth is sealed with a small stopper. He grumbles affectionately at the weight, but his steps are slow and steady. He disappears behind a curtain that acts as a doorway. You hear him mutter a greeting to someone inside. As twilight deepens, more lamps flicker into life. Their soft spheres of golden light float in the dimness, spaced like gentle stars scattered through the alley. Shadows stretch further now, pooling under carts and benches, sliding along doorways like calm water. You walk toward the market area again, though the bustle has softened into a cozy hum. A few vendors remain, preparing their stalls for tomorrow. A woman packs dried herbs into small bundles, tying each with twine. The smell of mint and bay drifts across the stones. A man sweeps the front of his stall, sending dust into the air where it glows briefly in lamplight before settling again. A small stand offers warm wine spiced with herbs. You accept a small cup. The drink is warm, not hot, soft on the tongue, carrying notes of rosemary, a hint of honey, and a faint smoky undertone from the clay vessel. You sip slowly, letting the warmth spread through your chest, easing the last of the day's heat from your limbs. You walk on, cup in hand, savoring the quiet transformation of the insula streets. Evening has made everything gentler. Voices lower, footsteps slower, gestures softer. Even the air feels calmer now, settled like a blanket laid carefully over the city. The laundry overhead flutters lightly in the evening breeze. The cloths catch the gold of the lamps and glow from within, like ghosts made of linen, slow dancing above the street. You drift past a man sitting on a stool with his back against a wall, repairing a sandal. The leather smells warm and slightly smoky from being softened earlier. His fingers work steadily, though unhurriedly. He nods as you pass and continues threading the leather strap through its slot. You find a quiet corner where the scent of crushed figs hangs in the air. A bowl of them rests on a windowsill, their skins slightly split from the day's heat. The sweetness is deep, heavy, almost floral. You stand near the bowl for a moment, letting the scent unfold in slow waves. You turn toward a small courtyard near the back of the insula. The air here is cooler, collected shade from tall walls, coupled with the faint trickle of water from a small basin. A woman is filling clay jars one by one, humming a steady rhythm. The water catches the lamplight as it pours, sparkling briefly before disappearing into the jar's mouth. Each jar releases a soft, echoing glug as the water settles. You touch the rim of a nearby jar, the clay is cool and slightly damp. A soft chill travels up your fingertips. It is a welcome contrast to the warmth of the day still lingering in your bones. As you begin to wander back toward your insula, the sky darkens into a deeper blue. A faint star peeks between the rooftops. Another joins it. Soon, a delicate scattering of early starlight dots the sky above the narrow streets. The lamps burn steadily now, their flames swaying gently. The alley smells of warm olives, soft smoke, and the first hints of night air. The conversations around you have grown quieter, though not silent. Rome doesn't sleep easily, but it does relax into itself. You step inside the insula again. The building feels cooler, calmer, the wood settling with soft ticks. You climb the stairs slowly, letting the dimness wrap around you. On your floor, the corridor is almost silent. A single lamp burns in a niche, its flame low but steady. The air carries the faint herbal scent of a neighbor's stew cooling by the window. You enter your room. The darkness inside is gentle. No sharp corners, just soft shadows shaped by the faint light sneaking through the shutters. You close the door behind you and sit once more on your cot. The blanket beneath you is cool, smooth, welcoming. You breathe in slowly. The scents of the day, dust, herbs, warm stone, baking bread, cooling air, settle into a final, quiet harmony. Outside, someone laughs softly. A lamp flame flickers. A shutter taps lightly in the breeze. And you remind yourself with a soft, contented breath. Evening is only beginning to deepen. You sit in the quiet for a moment longer, letting the room's darkness adjust around you like a soft cloak. The faintest shimmering of lamplight from the corridor steals through the shutter slats, creating thin golden stripes across the wall. They drift and waver as the breeze nudges the shutters. Gentle, unhurried, like a lullaby made of light. You rise slowly, easing the stiffness from your legs. The floor feels cooler now, a tender contrast to the heat it held through the afternoon. You stretch your fingers along the plaster wall, feeling the warmth that still lingers inside it. Heat stored deep, released slowly, like the insula itself is breathing out. For no particular reason except curiosity, you step outside again. The corridor is dim and tenderly quiet. A neighbor's lamp burns low in its little niche, flickering like a drowsy guardian. Someone's door is open just a crack. A strip of lamplight escapes from it, illuminating a rolled-up mat and a pair of worn sandals beside it. Inside, you hear the soft murmur of two voices, an evening conversation, slow and comforting, like water flowing in a shallow bowl. You descend the stairs carefully, the wood groaning beneath your weight in familiar, predictable patterns. A cool draft slides up from the lower floor, brushing your ankles. It smells faintly of stone cooling after a warm day, and of some stew someone is stirring nearby. At the bottom, the front doorway frames a darker, softer street. You step through it. Night has begun to pull its silken curtain across the insula. Lamps glow in windows and doorways like tiny suns suspended just above the ground. Their warm halos blur gently in the air, mixing with shadows shaped by linens, shutters, and the uneven faces of brick walls. The city no longer glows. Now it hums, a quiet, collective murmur of evening life. The air carries a thin chill at last. Not sharp, no, just a refreshing coolness that brushes your cheeks and temples, reminding you that even Rome must eventually exhale. A light breeze pushes against your tunic, carrying with it scents of roasted grain, cooling stone, olive oil, and a faint note of smoke curling upward from some extinguished pine torch. You begin to walk with the unhurried ease of someone who knows there's nothing left to chase today. A man stands near the baths, pouring water from a jug over his forearms. The water splashes softly, catching lamplight in quick silver flashes. Steam clings to the wall behind him, shifting like a sleepy creature. He lets out a long sigh, the kind that empties the shoulders. You nod in quiet solidarity. He returns it. You wander toward the main lane. The market has mostly folded itself away for the night. A few stalls remain, not open, just resting, blanketed with cloths that stir slightly in the breeze. The smell of produce lingers softly in the air. The sweet perfume of overripe figs, the peppery note of crushed greens, the faint earthiness of vegetables resting in their baskets, waiting to be sorted or sold tomorrow. A single vendor is still awake. He sits on a crate, mending a net that drapes over his knees. His lamp burns low beside him, casting the net's shadow in intricate patterns on the stone street. His fingers move deftly, looping twine through tiny knots. He hums under his breath, a tuneless, tired melody. You pass slowly so as not to disturb his rhythm. At the far end of the lane, 3 neighbors sit together on a bench, sharing the last of their evening wine. Their voices rise and fall in gentle tides. One of them gestures broadly with his cup, almost spilling, and the others laugh with softened amusement. Their laughter rings quietly, round and warm, dissolving into the night air before it can echo. A woman walks past with a tray of dishes, clay bowls and wooden spoons clinking softly together. The scent of lentil stew lingers in the air behind her, subtle and comforting. She disappears into a doorway with a polite nod in your direction. Near her home, a lantern hangs from a hook, its flame dancing steadily. Moths flutter near it in slow, spiraling patterns, their wings pale as dried petals. One brushes lightly against the wall before drifting higher into the night. You continue onward, deeper into the softer corners of the insula's neighborhood. Laundry still hangs between buildings, now no longer glowing in sunlight but swaying gently like shadowed flags. Some cloths are still warm from the fading day. Others have cooled, gathering the faint dampness of the evening air. Their silhouettes sway across the walls, creating moving patterns that rise and fall like slow breathing. A young boy sits on the ground, carving at a small piece of wood. Chips gather at his feet like tiny curled shells. He looks up briefly, gives a shy nod, and returns to his carving. The soft scraping of his blade against the wood blends into the night's gentle orchestra. A cat slinks past you, tail brushing your ankle like a soft question. It pauses, glances back as if checking whether you're following, then moves on with a lazy trot toward a distant window where a bowl has been set out. The scent of fish broth lingers faintly in the air. You follow the lane until it narrows, then turns, then opens again into a small courtyard illuminated by 2 lamps. Their warm glow paints the stone in deep amber. A couple sits on the low wall of a fountain, whispering quietly. The water within the fountain murmurs its own story, a continuous trickle that echoes lightly, filling the courtyard with a gentle, soothing sound. You walk closer, not intruding, simply observing the way the water catches the lamplight. Droplets shimmer briefly before joining the rippling surface below. You dip your fingers into the basin. The water is cool, almost startlingly so, and your skin tingles pleasantly as you withdraw your hand. The scent of basil drifts from a nearby window box. Its leaves glow faintly in the lamplight. An older man sits inside the window frame, peeling some root vegetable by the light of a small lamp. His hands move slowly. Heels gather at his feet like curled ribbons. He glances at you and offers a gentle nod before returning to his work. You head back toward the main street, but deeper now into evening's softness. A group of young people sits in a loose circle, sharing soft conversation and bits of fruit. Orange peels curl at their feet, their scent sharp and fresh. Someone strums a lyre, softly, lazily, just enough to fill the air with a mellow vibration. The music floats above the street like a thin thread of sound, tying the group together with its quiet warmth. You listen for a moment, letting the notes settle inside you. Farther on, a set of windows glow more brightly than the others. Someone inside is baking something late, flatbread perhaps. You catch a distinct puff of warm flour and yeast. It's a gentle scent, nostalgic, as though it knows a story older than the city itself. You pass beneath it, letting the warmth wash over you. A breeze picks up suddenly, cooler now, carrying the faint hint of the river somewhere far beyond the insula. The breeze lifts the ends of your tunic and brushes your hair lightly against your temple. You pause, letting the cool seep into your skin, thanking whatever evening spirit brought it. As you return toward your insula, the world feels quieter still. Most lamps burn lower, conversations thin, footsteps soften. A door closes gently. A shutter knocks once against a wall, like a soft, companionable tap. You enter the building. The stairwell smells faintly of cooling plaster and the lingering herbs of evening meals. You climb slowly, savoring the quiet. At your floor, the lamp in the niche still burns, though its flame has grown small. The shadows it casts are longer, smoother, less defined. You pass it with a slow nod, as though thanking it for keeping watch. Your door creaks faintly as you enter. Your room has cooled into a comfortable calm. The shutters let in a faint thread of night air and the distant murmur of neighbors preparing for sleep. A soft glow from a faraway lamp draws a faint golden line along your floor. You sit on your cot, this time sinking deeper, letting your body settle as though the day's dust and warmth are finally ready to fall away. You inhale long and slow. The air tastes of night cool stone, faint herbs, distant ash, and the last hint of figs from some forgotten bowl. Outside, someone extinguishes a lamp. Someone else hums a few fading notes. A baby cries once, twice, then quiets. The insula gathers itself into evening's embrace, settling with you. And you remind yourself with a small, slow breath. Night has only just begun its gentle descent. You sit on the edge of your cot for a moment longer, letting the night seep into the room like warm ink. The last traces of daylight have disappeared from the shutters, leaving behind only a soft glow from distant lamps and the quiet pulse of the city at rest. Your breathing falls into a slow, steady pattern, matching the rhythm of the insula around you. But the night calls gently, nudging you with its cool breath and its softened sounds. You rise once more, not abruptly, but like a leaf drifting from a branch. Your movements fluid, measured, unhurried. You open your door. The corridor is different now. Earlier, it was merely dim. Now it feels enveloped. The single lamp still burns in its niche, but the flame wavers with a quieter confidence, casting ripples of gold against the walls. Shadows stretch long and soft, merging into one another. The building exhales faint creaks, the wooden bones of the insula settling comfortably for the night. You step lightly toward the stairs. The air is cooler here, a gentle chill rising from the lower floors, mixed with the lingering warmth of dozens of lives tucked into their rooms. A faint scent of rosemary drifts from someone's doorway, woven into the smell of cooked grains and worn timber. The rope railing feels pleasantly cool to the touch as you descend, each step responding with a muted sigh under your feet. The familiar creaks seem softer now, more deliberate, as if the building is whispering rather than speaking. When you reach the doorway, you pause. Cool air brushes against your face, carrying the night's quiet promise. You push the door open. Outside, the world is wrapped in a deep, velvety blue. The lamps along the alley glow like miniature moons, their halos shimmering on the uneven stone. Shadows cling to the walls, layered and shifting with the slightest movement of the breeze. The city no longer bustles, it murmurs. Every sound feels softened, wrapped in wool. You step forward. The stones beneath your sandals are cool at last, though they hold a faint memory of the day's heat. The air tastes clean, almost sweet, like the moment after rain, though no rain has come. Somewhere nearby, a cat leaps onto a windowsill, the soft thump echoing briefly before disappearing into the night's hush. A few people linger outside their doorways. A man leans against a wall, arms crossed loosely, gazing at the sky as though expecting something. A woman folds a cloth carefully, her motions slow, methodical. A pair of older neighbors sit on a low bench, sharing a small bowl of nuts, cracking shells quietly between their fingers. The baths are quieter now. Their steam still rises, but in gentler curls, drifting like pale spirits into the night air. The water inside must be warmer than the evening air. The steam carries a mild, mineral sweetness. You approach the outer wall, feeling the warmth radiating gently against your hands. A bather exits, wrapped in a towel, hair still damp. He steps past you with a nod that feels almost drowsy. Behind him, distant splashes echo lightly. Quieter, calmer sounds than during the day, as though even the water has grown contemplative. You walk toward the main street, guided by the soft rhythm of night sounds. The market has been put to bed. Stalls are tucked under cloth coverings. Crates are stacked neatly. Tools rest against walls like dozing animals. But the whispers of the market remain. Faint fragrances of herbs, drying fruit, warm bread that has long since cooled. You inhale them like fading memories. A lamp seller, perhaps working later than usual, adjusts a wick in one of his small clay lamps. The flame brightens briefly, revealing his focused face, then settles. The smell of olive oil drifts from his stall, sharp and earthy. Nearby, a household is finishing supper. Through a window, you hear the clink of wooden spoons and the soft, satisfied sigh of someone leaning back. The aroma that drifts out is subtle, lentils, herbs, perhaps a touch of garlic. Comfort food for a city that rarely sleeps. You walk on, letting the night guide your steps. A narrow lane between two buildings draws you in. It's almost entirely shadowed, save for a single lamp hung at the far end, its flame trembling slightly. The alley smells of cool stone and faint traces of laundry still hanging above. Tunic hems fluttering gently in the breeze, releasing the ghost of daytime sunshine. Halfway down, you hear a soft scritch-scritch sound. A boy sits cross-legged, drawing patterns in dust with a stick. He looks up, his eyes reflecting lamplight like two small lanterns. He nods to you with solemn importance, as though acknowledging a fellow traveler of the night. You return the nod and continue. At the end of the lane, the quiet opens into a small courtyard. Here, night has pooled more deeply. Two lamps hang on opposite walls. Their combined glow soft and warm. A woman sits on the steps with a basket of laundry in her lap, folding each piece with slow, practiced motions. The fabric makes soft, whispering sounds as it slides through her hands. She stacks the folded garments neatly beside her, each one a small square of calm. Across from her, a man tends to an oil lamp, trimming the wick carefully with a small bronze tool. His fingers move with the unhurried precision of habit. When he cuts a bit too much wick, the flame flickers sharply, then steadies. The man huffs a quiet laugh, shakes his head, and tries again. In the center of the courtyard, a low basin collects water from a thin spout. The sound is subtle, a small, rhythmic trickle. You approach it, dipping your fingers in. The water is cooler than the air, carrying a clean, metallic taste. Thin ripples spread from your touch, catching the lamplight in wavy reflections. A breeze moves through the space, stirring the shadowed corners. It carries with it the scent of night flowers, faint sweetness, something almost citrus-like, and the warm musk of old wood. You breathe it in deeply, letting it settle into your senses. You continue your wanderings. In another lane, a man sits with his back against the wall, strumming a lyre in low, gentle notes. The melody is not lively. It drifts, slow and contemplative, almost circular. It feels like it has no beginning and no end, only a steady continuation. The sound threads through the night like a soft ribbon. You pause to listen. The notes wrap around you, finding their way into the quiet rhythm of your breath. The musician nods to you, understanding your silent appreciation. A woman nearby douses the last embers of her brazier. The coals hiss softly as water touches them, releasing a warm, smoky scent that rises briefly into the air. She stirs them gently with a stick, watching the glow fade like retreating fireflies. The sky has darkened into a rich navy now. A few stars shimmer between the rooftops, faint but determined. You tilt your head upward, feeling the night air cool your face. You eventually make your way back toward your insula. The building stands steady and shadowed, its windows flickering with the soft glow of evening lamps. A shutter knocks lightly in the breeze. 2 taps, then silence. The doorway sits half open, as though expecting your return. Inside, the stairwell sleeps lightly. The air is cool and quiet. You climb slowly, savoring the hush and the gentle echoes of your steps. On your floor, the niche lamp has nearly burned out. It casts a small, wavering pool of gold over the floor. This flame bows and rises as you pass, like a greeting. Your own door waits, silent and familiar. You enter, closing it softly behind you. The room is warm in its darkness, shaped only by the thin spill of night air from the shutters. You settle onto your cot again, pulling your blanket lightly over your legs. The wool feels soft and cool at first, then slowly warms to your body. You exhale. Outside, the city murmurs like a tired storyteller. The baths release a last sleepy sigh. A lone lyre plucks a slow chord. The air tastes faintly of olive oil and cooled stones. And in the comfort of that gentle darkness, you remind yourself, the night has only just opened its wings. You lie back for a moment on your cot, letting the night gather itself around you like a large, gentle creature. The quiet inside your room is soft, full of mellow shadows and warm breaths of air drifting through the shutters. You could stay here, your body certainly suggests it, but the night outside hums with a subtle kind of invitation. Not loud, not urgent, just there. A cool whisper persuading you to wander once more. So you sit up, letting the blanket pool around your waist, and you rise slowly. Your feet touch the cool floorboards again. The wood feels smoother at night, as though the heat of the day has finally slipped away and left a more delicate texture behind. A breeze nudges your shutters, sending a faint shiver of light along the wall. You walk quietly to your door and open it, careful not to disturb the calm that has settled over the insula. The corridor is dim, almost velvety in its stillness. The lamp in the niche has burned low, its flame now a faint, determined ember. Shadows sway gently around it, making the plaster look like soft waves. Someone's door is slightly ajar, and you hear the soft breathing of a family within. Steady, deep, comforting. It reminds you how many lives rest inside these walls, each one woven into the nighttime hush. You descend the stairs slowly, holding the rope railing. It feels cool and slightly rough against your palm, a different sensation from midday's warm fibers. The building creaks in familiar ways, as though commenting on your movements. Each wooden board seems to exhale under your feet. At the bottom floor, the air smells faintly of clay cooling overnight, mixed with the last traces of supper. Herbs, roasted grain, and a whisper of smoke that lingers like memory. The doorway, half open, releases the pleasant chill of night air. You step through it. Outside, the night has deepened into full, quiet majesty. The sky between the rooftops is a dark velvet blue, softened at the edges where lamps cast their halos upward. A few more stars have emerged now, tiny sparks scattered in the sliver of sky visible from the alley. Lamps glow along the street like little warm islands, their light trembling just slightly in the breeze. The air is cool enough to lift the warmth from your skin, but gentle enough not to startle. It carries scents of stone, distant water, faint herbs drying somewhere on a balcony, and the soft sweetness of bread cooling for tomorrow's early risers. You walk into the alley, your steps quiet on the smooth stones. A man sits outside his doorway, sharpening a small knife with slow circular motions. The scraping sound is gentle, almost rhythmic, like a whispering brush. He nods at you without pausing his work. A small lamp at his feet casts slanted golden shadows across his face and arms. Nearby, a pair of neighbors finish a final conversation of the day. Their voices are hushed, their gestures slow. They lean against the wall in relaxed angles, sipping from small cups. One laughs quietly, the sound soft and warm as it drifts through the night air. You pass them with a friendly nod and continue toward the baths. Even at this hour, the baths breathe. The warm stone walls exhale steady, delicate curls of mist. The scent of heated mineral water drifts toward you, fainter than earlier but still present, a soothing undercurrent in the cooler air. You touch the stone with your fingertips. It's warm, almost pulsing softly, a reminder that even now, life continues inside. Someone inside splashes gently, a quiet, lingering sound. No longer energetic, but unrushed and thoughtful, like water in a bowl being stirred before bed. You linger near the entrance, feeling the soothing humidity wrap lightly around your wrist. You move on. Down the lane, the market is now a sleeping creature. Stalls stand like dark silhouettes, their cloth covers swaying faintly as the breeze moves through. A lamp left burning by one of the vendors flickers inside a half-open stall, illuminating a basket of figs that gleam like muted gems. A stray fruit has fallen onto the stones. It lies there split open, its scent sweet in the night air, deep, ripe, almost wine-like. A small beetle crawls across it slowly, unhurried, owning the moment in its own tiny way. You pass a small pile of herbs laid out to dry on a flat stone. The faintly crisp scent of thyme drifts upward, sharper now in the cool air. Mint adds its brightness. Sage brings a warm, earthy undertone. Together they create a nighttime perfume more subtle and soothing than any incense. Farther along, a boy no older than 10 sits outside his home, rubbing his eyes sleepily. A clay lamp burns beside him, the flame steady. He holds a bundle of wool in his lap and seems to be unraveling it and twisting it again. Perhaps a late chore, perhaps simply a habit. When he sees you, he offers a sleepy smile, then returns to his gentle twisting. You walk past him and into a lane where laundry still hangs above. At night, it moves differently, softer, almost weightless. The cloths sway in a slow, dreamy rhythm. They brush against each other with a faint HH sound, like whispers shared by old friends. The movement casts wavering shadows on the walls, shifting like calm waves. You lift your gaze to the rooftops. A few neighbors sit near the edge, enjoying the coolness of night. One strums a string instrument softly. Another leans on his elbows, gazing at the narrow stripe of sky. Their quiet forms seem almost sculptural, silhouettes resting against the star-strewn backdrop. A gentle gust of wind wanders down the alley, carrying the faint scent of lake water, though the lake is far away. Perhaps the breeze brushed it on its way through the city. Whatever its origin, it feels fresh, almost tender. You inhale deeply, letting the coolness settle in your lungs. You continue walking, your steps naturally slowing in the calm. A woman closes her shutters across the street with a soft wooden click. The light inside her room dims, leaving the alley slightly darker. The lamp near the fountain further down becomes the brightest nearby light. You head toward it. The fountain sits in a small courtyard, its stone lion head glistening faintly. The water flows in a thin, constant stream, glowing gold as it catches the lamp beside it. The sound is soothing, a gentle trickle punctuated occasionally by a deeper splash when a drop falls just right. You crouch near the basin and trail your fingers through the water. It is cool, crisp, almost startling in its clarity. Your fingertips tingle from the sudden change in temperature. You wet your palms and bring them to your face. The freshness wakes you but doesn't disturb the night's calm. It simply sharpens it. A small group of neighbors sits nearby, speaking softly. One of them plucks dried fruit from a bowl and hands it to another. Their movements are kind, unhurried. They look like people who have finished everything important for the day and now allow themselves the luxury of doing nothing at all. You rise, letting the cool water drip from your hands onto the stones. In a nearby doorway, a lantern burns with a soft, reddish glow. Behind it, an older man dozes upright, head resting against the wall. His breathing is shallow and steady. A cat curls at his feet, paws tucked neatly under its body. The cat's ears twitch occasionally, alert but content. You continue back toward your insula. The lamps along the way burn low now, their flames swaying with the faint breeze. The shadows along the walls deepen, blending into a velvety patchwork that feels soothing rather than dark. Inside the building, the stairwell is cool and hushed. You climb slowly, your steps soft. The rope railing feels pleasantly cool now, almost smooth. Halfway up, you pause to listen. Somewhere below, the faint clink of pottery. Somewhere above, a gentle cough. Somewhere down the hall, whispered words through a nearly closed door. Small sounds, each wrapped in the night's softness. You reach your room once more and slip inside. It is dark now, except for the faint outside glow filtering through the shutters. The air in your room is perfectly cool. Not cold, not warm, just balanced, like the pause between one breath and the next. You lie down on your cot, pulling the blanket over you. The wool is soft and slightly scratchy in comforting ways. Your body sinks into it, grateful. Outside, Rome breathes its slow, ancient rhythm. A lamp flickers, a shutter taps, a distant laugh drifts upward, thin and fading. You breathe deeply, letting the night settle fully around you. And once again, with a soft smile in the dimness, you remind yourself, the night still has a long, gentle way to go. You lie for a while on your cot, wrapped in the gentle hush of night, listening to the softened life of the insula through the shutters. The air drifting into your room has cooled further, carrying the faintest scent of dust settling, mingled with the mild sweetness of something baked earlier in the evening. A distant murmur of voices rises and fades, never loud, never sharp, just the residual warmth of people winding down their day. Eventually, the quiet nudges at your senses again. Not demanding, just inviting. A small pull like the night itself extending a hand. So you sit up. Your blanket slides from your shoulders with a soft rustle. The floor greets your feet with a gentle coolness. You take in a slow breath, letting the crisp night air fill your lungs. Then, without hurry, you move to the door, easing it open so it doesn't creak too loudly in the corridor. The hallway is hushed, washed in a dim amber from the nearly spent lamp. The flame trembles, a tiny island of gold in a sea of shadow. The wall beside it glows faintly, like warm honey. The rest of the corridor falls into a quiet blue darkness, the kind that calms your heartbeat just by existing. You slip into the stairwell. The rope railing feels cooler than before, almost silky under your fingers. Your steps on the wood seem softer at this hour. Even the stairs' usual groan feels subdued, softened by the weight of the night. At the bottom, the faint lingering smell of cooked grain and herbs still clings to the air, the final breath of dozens of evening meals. There's clay too, and a hint of watered wine, the ghost of someone's late cup. You pause, letting each scent settle into the quiet. Then you step into the night outside. The alley has changed once more. Now it feels like another world. One that breathes deeply, slowly, without the urgency of day. The lamps glow with a low, steady flame, their halos soft and warm. Shadows spill along the walls like dark ink, but nothing feels threatening. Just calm, just rest. You move forward, your steps light on the cool stones. The soundscape is sparse now, shaped by tiny details. A shutter knocking once in the breeze, a distant dog shifting in its sleep, the soft drip of water from a rooftop gutter. Even the baths seem to whisper rather than exhale. Their mist rises in thin, delicate strands, resigned to the cool air. You pass a neighbor sitting quietly on a stool outside his doorway, elbows on knees, staring at nothing in particular. He greets you with a slow nod. You return it. Neither of you speaks. Words would feel too heavy for this hour. A few lamps flicker in nearby windows, their lights dim and steady. A woman gently shakes out a blanket on her balcony, preparing it for the coolness of night. The The fabric ripples like a soft wave before she folds it carefully and lays it across a railing. The movement is small, patient, almost ceremonial. You walk past the baths, where a faint gurgle echoes, water moving lazily through warm pipes. A few lamps glow within, but most of the space lies in comfortable darkness. You can almost feel the warm humidity against your skin, even without stepping inside. It drifts out in small breaths, soft and reassuring. You make your way down the main lane. The market stalls stand like quiet giants asleep beneath their cloth covers. A few ropes sway in the breeze, creating thin patterns of sound, tiny knocks, soft creaks. The stalls smell faintly of dried fruit and cured herbs, remnants of the day that cling to the wood. A cat sits atop one stall, tail curled around its paws, watching you with half-lidded eyes. It blinks slowly, feline approval for your presence at this hour. You nod to it, which seems to suffice. It resumes its contemplative stillness. You feel the urge to explore further. You slip into a narrower alley, one where the lamps are spaced wider apart, leaving pockets of deeper shadow. Laundry lines hang above, their cloths moving gently in the night breeze. The hems create quiet whispers as they brush each other. There's something comforting in the way they sway, small, rhythmic motions in the stillness. You pass by a doorway where someone is extinguishing their lamp. The wick sizzles faintly as it's lowered into oil. The light dims, leaving only darkness behind. You catch the faint scent of warm olive oil, a familiar anchor in the shifting night. Down the alley, a family sits outside on low stools. The mother hums softly, rocking a child wrapped tightly in a blanket. The father polishes a wooden bowl with a piece of cloth, slow circular motions that make a quiet rasping sound. Their voices are low, gentle, mingling with the hum of the night like threads of soft wool. A breeze moves through, stirring the leaves of a small potted plant resting near a doorway. The plant releases a faint herbal aroma, basil or mint, perhaps. You step closer to inhale it. Its freshness cuts through the warm haze of evening, sharp but pleasant. You continue toward a courtyard where earlier you heard neighbors chatting. Now, the space is transformed. A single lamp left burning casts a soft golden glow over the stones. Its flame flutters lightly, forming long, shifting shadows that stretch across the walls like delicate silhouettes. The fountain at the center murmurs gently, its trickle sounding almost sleepy. A clay jug sits beside the fountain, cooling in the night air. Its surface glistens with condensation. You place your hand on it. The chill travels up your palm, startling in a pleasant way. You drink a handful of water from the basin, cold, crisp, with a faint metallic undertone. It wakes your senses gently. The courtyard feels empty, but alive with subtle details. The whisper of the wind brushing the stones, the faint hum of the lamp, the distant echo of a lyre being plucked somewhere beyond the insula's walls. You leave the courtyard and walk toward a section of the neighborhood you haven't explored as deeply today. Here, the lanes are even narrower. The walls rise steeply, and the line of sky narrows to a thin ribbon overhead. Stars peek through it, just a handful but bright enough to feel intimate. The cool air collects here more intensely, a small reservoir of night. Someone's window shutters are open, and inside you see the glow of a lamp illuminating a shelf of pots and jars. The shadow of a person moves behind the curtain. Slow, methodical movements, perhaps cleaning or arranging something for the morning. The familiarity of these quiet acts feels grounding. You continue deeper, letting the night guide you like a soft hand at the back. You hear the soft tink-tink of metal against metal. A young man sits on a low stool, repairing something small, perhaps a buckle or a clasp. His lamp rests close to his hands, lighting his work in amber tones. The way he focuses, the precision of his fingers, the steady rhythm. It's all soothing. He doesn't look up, but you feel his awareness of your passing, like a respectful nod exchanged without words. Next to him, herbs hang from a rope, drying in the night air. Their scent is subtle but unmistakable. Chamomile, fennel, maybe some lavender. You breathe in, letting their calmness drift through you. You make your way back toward the main path. The lamps are dimmer now, Some have gone out entirely. The darkness feels gentle, not empty, like a blanket drawn snugly over the city. Your insula stands ahead, tall, dark, steady against the night sky. You enter, walking quietly up the stairs. The rope railing feels familiar in your hand. A neighbor's door is cracked open, spilling a warm sliver of lamplight across the floor. Inside you hear the faint rustle of cloth, a soft cough, then silence again. Finally, you reach your room. You slip inside and close the door behind you. The air is cool and calm. You lie down again, pulling the blanket over your body. The wool welcomes you, warming slowly. Outside, the city has settled deeper into sleep. The baths sigh one last time. A shutter rattles once. A soft voice sings a lullaby far in the distance. You sink into the quiet, and once more, with a gentle breath, you remind yourself, there is still much night left to drift through. You lie still for a few breaths, letting the blanket settle softly around your legs, feeling the gentle pulse of nighttime through the thin shutters. The quiet is no longer the early night quiet. It has deepened, become fuller, richer, as though the city itself has exhaled completely and now simply rests. But something in you is still awake, gently humming with curiosity. The insula around you feels different at this hour, as if the walls themselves have softened. You rise again, slowly, letting your feet touch the cool floor. The faint chill sends a small, pleasant shiver up your legs. The corridor outside your door welcomes you with its dim, steady glow. The niche lamp burns low, barely holding onto its wick, casting only a small halo of trembling amber. Most doors are closed now, the crack beneath each one glowing faintly with light or silence. One door is open just a sliver, revealing a glimpse of someone rolling up a sleeping mat, perhaps preparing to rest with the breeze from the window. You move down the corridor. The stairwell greets you with familiar creaks, but even these sound hushed now, sleepy, softened by the hour. You place your hand on the rope railing, its fibers cool and slightly damp from the night air drifting in. You descend slowly, step by step, letting the cool shadows cling to your sandals. At the bottom floor, the air carries a deeper chill, not cold, but present, like a reminder that the warmth of the day has finally retreated fully. You pause just long enough to sense the quiet, the faint shifting of a pot settling on a wooden shelf, the distant echo of a shutter knocking somewhere down the alley, the low hum of night that underlines everything. You push open the door and step outside. The street now rests in a deep, velvety blue-black. The lamps have burned down even further, their flames small and golden, glowing like little hearts flickering against the darkness. Shadows stretch long and soft, merging into the curves of the insula walls. The air is cool and surprisingly fresh. It tastes faintly metallic, like cold water, and carries a whisper of basil or mint from some unseen pot. Your breath emerges in thin clouds, barely visible, just pale smudges dissolving instantly in the air. You begin to walk. Your footsteps make almost no sound. The stones are cold beneath your sandals, but their coolness feels grounding, like the city lending you its steady pulse. A soft breeze moves down the alley, nudging strands of your hair and stirring the edges of your tunic. You pass a doorway where a lamp has gone out completely. The darkness inside is thick, but peaceful. Across from it, another doorway glows faintly with lamplight. The silhouette of a person moves inside, perhaps tidying up before sleep. You catch the faint scent of warm olive oil and something sweet, maybe dates or honey. A cat sits on the windowsill, tail wrapped neatly around its paws. It watches you with half-closed eyes, as though assessing whether you belong to this hour. After a moment, it blinks in slow approval and turns its head toward the street. You walk past the baths. At this time of night, they breathe very little. Only a faint drift of steam escapes from a vent, carrying a warm mineral scent that blends quietly into the air. The stone walls are warm to the touch, but no longer hot. You lay your palm on them briefly. The warmth feels like the last remnants of a fire dying down. An old man sits nearby on a stool, snoring lightly. A small lamp flickers beside him, casting a soft glow over his folded hands. A dog sleeps at his feet, curled into a perfect circle, its ears twitching occasionally as though listening to some private dream. You continue. Farther down, the market is almost silent now. The stalls are mere silhouettes, covered with cloths that billow faintly in the breeze. The air smells of dried herbs and cold stone, with a hint of yesterday's figs clinging to the wood. You run your hand along one stall. The fabric is cool and slightly rough beneath your fingers. A merchant sleeps inside his closed stall, his breathing barely audible. His lamp glows weakly through the cracks in the wood, making thin golden stripes on the ground. You walk on, letting the stillness settle deeper. The laundry lines overhead creak softly as the cloths sway. Their movement is almost imperceptible, but you hear the faint shhh as fabric brushes fabric. The night breeze plays with the hems, making them dance slowly, dreamily. You turn into a quieter side alley. Here, the shadows are thicker but gentle. A single lamp burns near a window, casting a warm pool of light on the ground. The window is partially open, and from inside you hear the quiet clinking of pottery, someone washing a few last bowls before bed. The water makes soft splashes, slow and rhythmic. You pass a potted plant near the doorway, rosemary. Its scent is sharper at night, awakened by the cooler air. You brush your fingertips lightly over its leaves and breathe in the earthy fragrance that rises instantly. A breeze slips in behind you, nudging your back like a gentle shepherd. You follow it deeper into the alley. Ahead, you find the small courtyard again. Now it looks different, quieter, more intimate. The lamp beside the fountain has nearly burned down to a low flame. The trickle of water sounds louder now, more distinct without the daytime clatter. You kneel beside the basin and dip your fingers into the water. This time it feels almost cold. The sensation spreads up your arms, clearing your thoughts like crisp morning air. For a moment, you linger there, watching the ripples change the lamp's reflection into gold-streaked patterns. A moth flutters around the flame, slowly, drunkenly, its wings pale and delicate. The lamp wavers in response, sending shadows dancing across the courtyard walls. You rise and continue through the lanes. A potter's workshop sits in darkness, but the smell of clay still lingers. Cool, earthy, grounding. A stack of new vessels rests outside, ready for tomorrow. Their shapes look ghostly in the dim light, silhouettes of future usefulness. In another doorway, a couple whispers quietly. Their figures are barely visible, but their voices carry a tenderness shaped by the hour. A child stirs somewhere inside their home, then quiets again. You walk on. Eventually, you turn down a familiar path toward your insula. The building's tall silhouette stands steady and comforting. A lamp glows faintly in one of the upper windows, marking the presence of someone restless like you. You step inside. The stairwell greets you with cool, familiar air. You climb slowly, savoring each quiet detail. The shift of shadows, the soft scratch of rope fibers beneath your palm, the distant sound of someone adjusting their bedding. On your floor, the niche lamp has finally extinguished. Only darkness remains, shaped by memory and faint starlight. You find your door by touch and slip inside. The room feels cool now, cooler than before. You inhale deeply, catching the sense of night. Stone, wool, a distant hint of rain that hasn't arrived, and the faint sweetness of dried figs. You lie down again, pulling the blanket to your chest. It warms slowly, cocooning you in soft darkness. Outside, Rome sleeps, lightly but sleeps. A shutter taps once. A dog sighs. The baths murmur faintly. Everything else is still. You exhale, and, sinking deeper into your blanket, you remind yourself with a soft, drifting thought. The deepest part of the night hasn't even arrived yet. You lie there for a long moment, half wrapped in your blanket, listening to the quiet pulse of the night inside the insula. The air drifting through the shutters feels even cooler now, just a soft stroke across your forehead, as if the city itself has reached in to smooth the last creases of the day. The room holds its breath with you. Somewhere in the building, a floorboard shifts. Somewhere outside, a cup touches stone. But nothing demands anything of you now. You pull the blanket higher, letting the wool warm slowly against your chest. A single thread brushes your neck, a tiny tickle, then stillness. You exhale. The rhythm of your breath folds into the deeper rhythm of Rome at night, steady and ancient. The shutters tremble once. A narrow slice of starlight slips in, pale and thin, barely enough to paint a soft line across the floor. You follow it with your eyes until the line fades into shadow, absorbed by the quiet. You could fall asleep right here, in this moment. But the night inside the insula has one last softness to show you. You sit up, slowly, letting the blanket slide from your shoulders like a gentle wave. Your feet touch the cool floor again. You walk to the shutters and open them just a little more. Outside, Rome sleeps in layers. The alley below is almost entirely dark now. Only one lamp still burns, farther down, near a doorway you passed earlier. Its flame is tiny, flickering with a fragile determination. The shadows around it shift like old fabric. Laundry hangs unmoving, heavy with the final dampness of the night. You lean your arms on the windowsill. The stone is cold, a deep, steady cold that wakes your skin gently. You feel it seep into your palms. You inhale deeply. The night smells of stone dust, cooling clay, faded smoke, and the faint sweetness of figs resting in forgotten baskets. Above, the strip of sky between the rooftops has darkened to a deep, velvety blue. A few stars shimmer through it, tiny, stubborn lights that have watched the city rise and settle for centuries. They flicker with a quiet confidence, as though reassuring you that all is well, and all will be well when morning returns. You rest your chin in your hand for a moment, letting the city's calm settle into your bones. One of the neighbors shifts behind a thin wall, rolling onto their other side. Their mat sighs. Someone coughs softly. A baby murmurs once, then falls silent again. You close your shutters with slow fingers, careful not to wake anyone. The room darkens fully. When you lie back down, the blanket welcomes you like an old friend. The wool warms faster now. Your body eases into the cot. The wood beneath you gives a familiar, gentle creak. You pull the blanket close, curl your knees slightly, and let the day unspool behind you. The baths, the market, the herbs, the warmth, the voices, the late quiet. The insula exhales around you, settling deeper into stillness. Your own breath slows to match it. Outside, the last lamp in the alley flickers once, twice, and then finally goes out, stealing the last glimmer of gold from the world. Your room grows perfectly dark. Your eyelids lower. Rome fades into a distant murmur. And as your breath evens out, soft and steady, you let yourself drift. The night is complete, and morning is still a long, gentle dream away.